I want to recall the workshop objectives that are to raise awareness about the project findings and discuss them together with the people who contributed to all the case studies. We wish to review the SeBS methodology. There is a fully fledged methodology which has been developed. There are, of course, areas for improvements, it's really an open floor to debate where the methodology could be improved. To collect, also we wish to collect inputs and ideas and prepare for further cases and analysis. This workshop is not at the end of the activity. We have still some more time and resources we wish to collect some additional cases and perform some further analysis. So if there are inputs in this respect, do not hesitate. And finally, we wish to brainstorm about future steps and get recommendations for possible ways in which the study could be leveraged to improve Sentinel's benefits. We will do this in the last session. It's an open discussions tomorrow afternoon. We have, of course, prepared some points for discussions. We have, of course, some ideas, but we are really open in case you, throughout the workshop, you notice some topics that you think could be of general interest for the general discussion on tomorrow afternoon. Do not hesitate to signal them to myself or to the project team via email or into the chat. And with this, I should hand it over, but not yet. There is some important reflection that I wish to make before heading to the core of the workshop, which is that I wish to thank all the participants, but I wish to thank the many people who contributed to the study. I mean, the case studies and the reports are not only the work of the project team, but they really federated a number of contributions from the Sentinel users and downstream. These are business persons or civil servants, public officers. There are many who contributed to these reports and to really allow the understanding of the cases. You find the names in the reports themselves, by the way. And their contribution is fundamental to really get under the skin of the cases. And I think that this is the key for the SeBS reports to be so realistic, because they really bring about the experience of the people working in the field. And without this interaction with the users, I doubt that you can really make to a very extent an assessment of the benefits that are brought by the use of Earth observation data, because this is an exercise which is very peculiar. It's the data can be used and can bring benefits in so many different ways that it's nearly impossible really to come around to really grasp the effectiveness of the benefits if you don't engage in a conversation with the users. And this is not trivial, because users just want to make use of the data. They probably did not expect that we would come back to them and ask them to share their experiences. I think this is very valuable, the effort that many of them have done to accept to share their experiences with us. And many of them will be doing this with us today. I counted almost 30 different persons who will be here today and reflecting upon the use of the benefits brought by the use of the data into their organizations and even downstream to society. I think this is this is really valuable, and it's something which really brought much value to the study itself and to the workshop. So to all the speakers today, I thank you very much. Particularly, I'm eager to learn, to hear from you your experiences, and with this, I think that I can hand it over the floor to the enthusiastic project team, and especially to Jeff Sawyer, who is the senior advisor to ERSC. He is the project manager and the very engine behind SeBS and behind the workshop. So Jeff, with no further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alessandra, and for those kind words as well. I'll reiterate again some of those key points that you were making just now as I go through some introductory slides. So let me add my welcome to everyone here. Welcome to following Alessandra, Mauro, and Simon, and we appreciate their opening for this study, for this workshop. It's been a really big effort putting this together. Hopefully everything will run smoothly. We have some backup plans in place, but hopefully they will not be needed, and we'll be able to go smoothly through the various presentations. It's complex because of the number of different speakers and the number of different parts to the workshop, but the project team have been working very hard to put it together, and so let's get going. Just to start off with, I'll give a brief overview of what we've been doing. The focus is around the cases, but it's more than that, because by building a portfolio of cases, we're able to get much deeper insights into different parameters, different aspects of what is going on. So we will be talking about that as we go through the workshop. Some of those points will certainly come out, but the insights into how EO data is being used, how much potential there is in the market for it to be used much more, understanding some of the barriers to the wider uptake, all of which in my mind exposes a very encouraging future for the products and services which we are developing. So SeBS, we've been working on a methodology. This has evolved through the study. We'll present what the result of that. It's about measuring the value of Earth observation, and as I've said, the rich portfolio of cases has enabled us to go deeper. So we've identified over 250 potential cases, and we've selected 24 of those. There's a 25th, but 24 will be presented during the workshop as sufficiently sound for analysis, and with express support from the organizations concerned, and especially the primary user. And Alessandra emphasized this point, and I think it is absolutely fundamental. We couldn't do this without the support of the primary user, and I will add my thanks to those from Alessandra for all those who've given their time to this, and who are giving their time to the workshop as well. We think it's a very valuable exercise, but obviously time is concerned, and so the evaluation of our benefits has moved just beyond just economics. Clearly everyone's interested in the numbers, but what we found is that other things are also important as well, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And then the portfolio has enabled us to do these cross-cutting analyses, which leverage on the understanding developed in each case and the deep understanding that we develop in each case. So next slide, please. This shows the geographical extent of the work that we've been going. So all these cases in blue are available on the website. In green will shortly be available on the website. And that gives you an idea of the distribution of cases that we've done. Next slide, please. So then there are two fundamental pillars to the methodology that we use. It's already been mentioned, it's a bottom-up approach. Simon has mentioned that. So we're looking at specific and real use cases for defined Copernicus data products. So for the work we're doing, it's important that Sentinel data is being used and that this is visible within the services. And the second pillar is the value chain approach, which is illustrated here as we do in the reports and in the flyers, which is the evolution from a service provider through the primary user, who again I've emphasized there is the key actor, through secondary beneficiaries of what the primary user is doing, through to all of us, everyone in society, citizens and society, and we try to develop each analysis to this point. So these are the two pillars of our work, the bottom-up approach and the value chain. So the next slide, please. So as I've already hinted, everyone's interested in the numbers, the non-monetary benefits, but the non-monetary benefits we're finding are equally as important. So we've placed more and more emphasis on trying to understand these non-monetary benefits. Now, everything could be monetized if we had enough time and resource, but sometimes it's really, really hard to do so. If you think of trying to understand the environmental impact of oil spills on marine life, you could come up with some numbers for it, but it's very, very hard. And so we tend to emphasize the benefit there rather than the numbers. And this has led us to develop, next slide please, an approach where we're looking across cases. 3 examples are shown here, cases where the data and the platform built around the data enable people to work better together. I'm not going to go into the details here because we have these cases over the next couple of days. So the second highlight is the strategic picture. People are able to develop a much more strategic understanding of what's going on and even contribute to strategic goals as a result of using Sentinel data and Earth observation data. And then the impact on public agencies and better regulation and the ability to lay down better regulation has come up in many, many cases. So next slide, please. This leads us to classifying the benefits that we're finding into what we call 6 dimensions of value. So the economic one, you've clearly recognized. The other 5 are environmental benefits like the marine ecosystem I've just mentioned, the regulatory benefits, the ability to design better regulation, to monitor it and control better, impact on innovation and entrepreneurship, creating new businesses, creating new processes. It's not just about business, it's also about processes in often public organizations. Advancements into science and technology, how the data can help research, and then societal benefits. And that really is a very important dimension, and we should come back to that quite a lot during the workshop. Alongside each of the icons that we use to represent the value, you see this stack of 5 bullet points. This is where we're looking to give an idea of the relative value of the contribution of the case, and the contribution of the case to these dimensions. So the next slide, please. It's clearly subjective. It's a subjective judgment as to how important it is, but we're trying to lay down some conditions, a framework for assessing that. So this is just to give you an idea there. All this is available in the SeBS methodology report, which is available on the website. Next slide, please. As are a number of cross-cutting analyses, which are complementary to the cases, and as I've said, are possible because of the portfolio of cases. So again, on the website is being updated at the moment, so there will be new material appearing, new presentations appearing, but the basic material is there, and you can go there to find the methodology or other data. Next slide, please. So for each of the cases, there is a full case report for 16 of the cases. A full report contains an assessment against the 6 dimensions. It's about a 70-page report with a 2-sided flyer just giving a summary. Then, because a lot of this is about storytelling, we introduce short cases where we don't go into quite the same depth, but we do look at the case and understand what's going on, and rather than trying to quantify, we focus here on the qualitative values. So again, here there is in this case it's a 6-page report, and a two-sided flyer giving the elements of the case. SeBS methodology report I've mentioned, cross-cutting analyses, and all are available on the website, which the link is shown there. So now, the next slide please. Let me just give a very quick overview to what we're going to be doing over the next 2 days. We'll be presenting 16 full cases. For each one, there's an animation and then a discussion with the stakeholders who've been involved, and primarily the primary users that we've already identified as being so important. There are 8 short cases which will be presented in 2 batches of 4, and then there'll be 3 panels where we're addressing to try and talk about and discuss some of the key findings from the cross-cutting studies. So now, hello, what's the sound? Thank you. And drawing all this together will be a simple narrative where we will introduce each of the cases in turn. So just one final introductory slide. Next slide, please. As Alessandra has already indicated, there's been a lot of people involved in preparing this. These are the pictures of the people that you'll see over the next 2 days. So I won't introduce them here. I'll introduce them at the time we get to their interventions. Some of them you'll appear several times, others not. But they've all been supported by a backstage team as well. So from Martin, Veronica, Delphine and Polina from the EARTH team, and then from Isa, Alessandra, Laura, and the ESA graphics department, which have put together the animations that you'll start seeing shortly. So that's about it, and we can now turn to the workshop. Alessandra's talked about the rules. Just to say that within each of the cases that we do, each of the full cases at least, we introduce a short fictional story to try to explain what's going on. And on a more broad basis, we have found that storytelling is really almost as important as the analysis. Telling the story really helps to convey. So we're going to continue in that frame of mind with a story, or at least a set of stories, which will help organize the cases into a coherent thread. I've said we've had 24 cases. It would be easy just to go through bang, 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 one case after another, but we wanted to make it a bit more interesting than that. So hopefully we'll entertain you a little bit as well as informing you. So our journey today through the cases, the stories which SeBS provides, will be a mixture of history and geography. So first of all, a disclaimer. Most of the background information in this story comes from Wikipedia. It is not complete and it is maybe inaccurate, so don't blame me. It is only there as a means to introduce the cases and is no way part of the cases or reflects the cases. So hopefully they will just be there as a guide. Let's get started. And the first case up is clean seas in the Mediterranean. So we're starting our story in what some refer to as the cradle of civilization in the Mediterranean Sea. As well as being a popular tourist destination and home to over 500 million people in the countries on which it borders, the Med is one of the most important shipping routes in the world. In addition to the ships serving Mediterranean ports such as Marseille, Piraeus, Valencia, Genoa, and of course many, many more, it is a transit route between the Black Sea, the Suez Canal, and Northern Europe through the Gibraltar Straits. 23 countries surround the sea, most with histories stretching back thousands of years, hence the cradle of civilization. So the sea is an important economic area, as well as being one of the most crucial in environmental terms, with really a flourishing and unique ecosystem. For this reason, pollution in the Mediterranean is especially important. It is one reason why the EU has introduced a service run by EMSA called Clean Sea Net, which has the objective to reduce pollution in the sea. So let's just hear first about Clean Sea Net. Can we go full screen, please? Oil pollution pollution in the marine environment causes immense damage to ecosystems and unsightly, unpleasant swaths of oil on beaches and coastlines. Shipping accidents are infrequent, but when they happen, can release fuel oil into the ocean. When they involve an oil tanker, the damage can be catastrophic, as was the case for the Prestige accident in 2002 or the Erika in 1999. But a more constant threat occurs where ships' captains wash out their oil and bilge tanks at sea illegally. EMSA, the European Maritime Safety Agency, now provides a service to member states called Clean Seas Net. All Sentinel-1 data is processed automatically by several contracted service providers for the Mediterranean and all European coasts and received by EMSA within 20 minutes of the satellite passing overhead. Where a potential oil slick is detected, the image is sent to the national coast guards in the member states, together with information on the ships passing through the area and indications of potential guilty culprits. The national authorities validate the information. They may dispatch ships or aircrafts on the scene and perform further research to uncover the suspect. In some cases, samples may be taken of the oil from the ship concerned and may lead to prosecution and heavy fines. Knowledge that this can happen is a very powerful deterrent, and the number of accidents has strongly reduced over the past few years. Reducing oil in the sea helps protect the sensitive marine environmental ecosystem and keeps beaches cleaner and more attractive for holidaymakers and residents alike. By helping reduce oil spills and protecting local beachside businesses, Copernicus enables Clean Sea Net to deliver an annual economic benefit of between 4 and 14 million euro in the Mediterranean. But of much more importance is the value of the contribution it makes to preserving the marine ecosystem. Now like to introduce Teresa Cunha. Teresa, please, if you can join me on the stage. Teresa is the Senior Project Officer in charge of Surveillance, Safety, Security at the EMSA, and crucially is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the Clean Sea Net service. So, Teresa, thank you very much for joining us. Perhaps you could just start off by saying a little bit about the EMSA, the role of EMSA, and your role in EMSA.
Yes, of course. So can you hear me well? Good afternoon.
Yes.
So good afternoon. As you said, so my name is Teresa Cunha. I'm a Senior Project Officer at European Maritime Safety Agency. I work in the Surveillance Unit and I'm the Service Manager of Clean Sea Net Service. And also on behalf of EMSA, I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate in this workshop. So EMSA is a regulatory agency of the European Union based in Lisbon, Portugal. So these are my first words. I don't know if I... Jeff, should I continue?
Thank you. Clean Sea Net, important service. How does Copernicus contribute?
Sure. So the mission of EMSA is to provide technical and operational support to European Union member states and to the Commission in the fields of maritime safety and security, prevention and response to marine pollution by ships, oil and gas installations. Now, concerning Clean Sea Net service, which is a European satellite-based service, it was developed by EMSA in 2007 and offers assistance to detect possible oil on the sea surface, including illegal discharges of mineral oil. Clean Sea Net, it also offers assistance to identify potential polluters and to monitor the spread of oil during maritime emergencies. But how does it work? So usually within 20 minutes of satellite pass, Clean Sea Net provides alerts of detected oil spills on the sea surface and, if available, also provides information on possible polluters. And who are our clients, you can ask? So CleanSeaNet community includes more than 650 operational users from more than 100 national authorities. Examples of these authorities that have access to CleanSeaNet are, for example, Navy, Coast Guards, Maritime Rescue and Coordination Centers, and also, for example, environmental agencies. In terms of figures, for you to have an idea, in 2020, CleanSeaNet service covered more than 1,500,000 of square kilometers. So it covered a huge area. And overall, more than 8,000 images were delivered, and more than 8,100 possible oil spills were detected in the area covered by CleanSeaNet, and also 12 emergencies were supported last year by this service. The service is offered to the European Union and EFTA countries, as well to Montenegro and Albania, and also to beneficiary countries of SafeMed and Black and Caspian Sea projects. So, as a huge coverage. To conclude, I would like to add that besides CleanSeaNet, the agency hosts two other Earth observation services, which are the Copernicus Maritime Surveillance Service, and also provides support to border control activities, providing service to the European Border and Coast Guard Agency, Frontex.
That's very impressive. In fact, in the video, we had an image showing all your detections for 2020. And we also had another image, it wasn't labeled, unfortunately, which showed all the tankers going through the Mediterranean on a single day. I mean, it was a snapshot, and it's so impressive, the number of passages that are going through and the importance of the channel, which is why we focused on the Mediterranean. So how is EMSA able to do a better job with Sentinel data? How does it help you do a better job?
Well, this question is very interesting, because using satellite-based surveillance, CleanSeaNet is able to detect possible oil spills at sea and to alert the European Union member states accordingly. So the synthetic aperture radar satellites are able to detect very thin oil films that are floating on the sea surface during day and night and through cloud cover, allowing 24/7 monitoring, which is very, very important to us. In SAR images, the oil spills appear as dark areas, while vessels and platforms appear as bright spots. So in 2015, EMSA started using Sentinel-1 in CleanSeaNet, and afterwards we joined Sentinel-1B. We joined this satellite in the EMSA satellite of portfolio of satellites. I would like also to point that EMSA relies mostly on Sentinel-1 mission to acquire Earth observation data, due to the good coverage of this satellite over European waters and the high quality of the products for oil spill detection. This is very, very important for us. And also, given its spatial resolution, as well as the relative high number of looks, Sentinel-1 allows the detection of much smaller spills compared with other radar satellites, which is a big advantage for us. And to conclude, the great success of the use of Sentinel-1 mission is evident if I say that last year, 88% of the overall CleanSeaNet images were acquired from Sentinel-1 mission. And in terms of delivery reliability, which is considered a critical attribute for space systems, the ratio is set to 97%, showing an excellent performance.
Impressive. I've talked about the non-monetary benefits in my introduction. Are there other ways in which Sentinel data helps CleanSeaNet and it helps manage the issue of oil pollution in the Mediterranean?
So, in one hand, in the European context, CleanSeaNet is a valuable element on the overall chain that is in place to detect and combat marine pollution. The service has proven so far to be an important resource for monitoring maritime areas and providing detection that allow for a prompt follow-up action. On the other hand, data provided by Sentinel-1 can be correlated with vessel traffic routes in the same area, which may help to identify potential spill source. And also, the existence of this service serves as a power deterrent to potential polluters. For example, in some member states, we know that they mention CleanSeaNet service on their capacity building activities, such as training to the vessel crews, so they are well aware about the risks that they face if they carry out illegal activities at sea. The regular coverage of Sentinel-1 and the analysis of the images made by EMSA service providers, it's very important to reduce the capture time and to increase the frequency of observations and to increase the probability to detect illegal activities. Between 2016 and 2018, there was a gradual increase in the trend of number of possible spills detected per million square kilometers due to the increased use of Sentinel-1 that enabled the detection of much smaller spills. As from 2018 onwards, the ratio of use of Sentinel compared to other satellites has stabilized, and therefore the size of the spills detected is not any longer impacting the trend. In 2019, the trend started reversing, meaning that the number of possible spills detected by million kilometer is decreasing, showing the impact of constant monitoring in the European waters and the associated deterrent effect on pollutants. It's also very important to note that albeit CleanSeaNet service has an important role in assisting the states during accidents, the capability of the satellite to detect smaller spills is extremely important, as it enables the service to detect potential illegal discharges that occur very frequently.
So thank you very much. Finally, are there any other benefits that, or the future use of Sentinel data?
Well, yes. So getting a reliable overview of human activity at sea, as you are well aware, is a complex and demanding task. So the vast areas that are covered by our oceans resist to wide-scale surveillance from the ground, and this makes satellites and their onboard sensors a reliable, efficient, and cost-effective option for maritime safety, security, and sustainability purposes. The high reliability of Sentinel-1 mission contributes to the excellent key performance indicators of CleanSeaNet service in a very cost-effective manner due to the existing license agreement with the Commission. Moreover, Sentinel-1, coupled with the Space Data Highway, this EDRS, could potentially enable the provision of near real-time services to the Member States' overseas territories in areas that are currently CleanSeaNet is forced to use other satellite missions, for example, La Réunion and Martinique. Unfortunately, until now, it's not possible to rely on this great contribution, but at EMSA, we are hopeful that this can be addressed in the near future. Also, I would like to add that currently EMSA is developing a proof of concept with an external company to assess the possibility to estimate oil spill volumes using Sentinel-2 images, which is quite important for us.
Thank you very much, Teresa. We've got a question in the chat, but we have dedicated sessions for questions. Teresa, I hope you'll be able to be with us. Will you be able to be with us later?
I think so.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd rather keep the questions at that point in time. Let's see. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you very much for your interaction, and hope we come back to you later. Many powers have seen their fortunes wax and wane on the shores of the Mediterranean, and several empires have risen only to fall. One of these, the Roman Republic and later the Roman Empire, lasted for almost 1,000 years, bringing it within an invention of great importance in modern times, the paved road. Recognizing its importance for commerce to thrive and for power to be maintained by the fast deployment of troops, The Romans built a large network of roads throughout Europe, the traces of which can still be seen today. So the successors of Julius Caesar and his citizens were the first people in the world to build modern motorways. The world's first dual highway opened in Italy in 1924 between Milan and Varese, now part of the A8, A9, which leads to the Joint Research Centre in Ispra, which many will be familiar with. Today, the Roads Agency in Italy maintains a network of 32,000 kilometres of highways throughout the country. I'm joined in the case by Flavio Capozucca, but before inviting him to take the floor, let's look at the case summary. Copernicus Sentinel data is helping the Italian roads authority ANAS design and manage Italy's highways. Transport infrastructures are key for every country. Italy's road network comprises more than 250,000 kilometres, of which over 26,000 kilometres is highways or autostrada, with many bridges and more tunnels than the whole of the rest of Europe. But Italy is also a young and dynamic country, geologically speaking, and is particularly subject to landslides and ground movements. Landslips may occur due to geological instability or events such as heavy rain or earthquakes. Avoiding or mitigating the consequences poses considerable challenges for the planning, building, and maintenance of road infrastructures. Planetech, a small Italian company offering EO services, has developed a product called Reticus, after the sole pupil of Copernicus, which provides regularly updated countrywide maps of ground movements based on data from Sentinel-1. These allow millimetric movements of the ground to be detected. ANAS is now using the Reticus service to monitor some of its projects, for example, the Polizzi Tunnel in Calabria, to help understand where problems may arise and to take preventative action. As a result, the design of highways can be made more resilient against future ground movements. As roads are increasingly bearing the load for freight transport and logistics, where delivery delays can be costly. Consequently, there are strong benefits if roads are closed less often and for shorter periods, and especially keeping access open for the emergency services. Smoother road operations mean calmer journeys and less time lost for citizens and freight transportation services. Copernicus is estimated to generate potential economic benefits of between 5.6 million and 13.6 million per annum in Italy, and to help ensure that in the future, Italian highways can assure better transport services. So now I should be joined by Flavio Capozucca from the agency in Italy, together with Alessandro Banella. And hi, Flavio. So good to see you. So glad you could be with us. Please,
yes.
Can you tell us a little? Please, can you tell us a little bit about ANAS, or tell our audience a little bit about ANAS, what you do, how Copernicus data is helping you in your work, and what the benefits are? And I think you have some slides, so I'll give you the floor.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. And as the time is very few, I hope that this slide can help me to give some information in few time. And the argument is Sentinel benefit study and the use in the highway management in Italy. In this first slide, you can see we had the same thought about the Roman Empire and the old Roman streets. This is the most famous in the world. Via Appia. Today it's practicable with bicycle near Rome. Next slide, please. Here some data from ANAS and our territory. We have on the left side our ANAS road network, which can you see it's very extensive, and on the right side the geological territory with sign all the landslides events. The number very high is the actual number of territory with problem related to landslides. Next slide, please. Here we can answer to the questions. Sorry. The Sentinel data, ANAS. Oh, maybe there was another slide before. Another relating to the company. No. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Here we can see that ANAS currently uses Sentinel data in specific contexts. That's to say, where or when ground movements are creating difficulties for the existing network in construction sites, or when a new road infrastructure project pass through unstable areas. We hope that in the future the target could be an extensive use of satellite data to have a dedicated mapping of the entire road network for three aspects above all. First, monitoring the unstable areas near bridges, viaducts and tunnels present along the network. The other way, designing new roads, being able to evaluate cost and critical issues in advance. Last but not least, monitoring the areas most subject to increasing effect of climate change that now in Italy is quite common in some regions like Liguria, Sicilia and other. Next slide, please. Here we can see one of the cases illustrated in the reports. The territory of Palizzi in the southern Italy, where a tunnel, the line with the red line, encountered many problems with big landslides that you can see in the lighter areas. Next slide. And you can see the utilization of interferometric monitoring of the area in correspondence of this little town Palizzi Marina, which is just on the coast. And we can see all the points with framing map of displacement, estimated displacement in 4 or 5 red polygons where we are monitoring what is happening together with 18 corner reflectors. Next slide. And here we can see I summarize the ANAS benefits using this activity. First one is to have the historical movement mapping can determine the best path while avoiding unstable areas, while having a detailed mapping of movement occurring at rates of a few millimeters per day or week can help us to identify where construction work need a particular approach as we said in the other slide, we have many points in Italy where it's necessary a particular approach. Mapping over large areas can show large-scale instability. We have this situation, especially in the Alps, where there are no rapid landslides, but entire mountains that move very slowly. Last, very precise motion measurement with corner reflectors. This is very important because allow us to verify the effectiveness of stabilization intervention, and if necessary, to integrate this intervention with other geotechnical structure. Next slide. At the end, we can consider some general social benefits, starting from environmental benefits, because of course in this way we have more efficient highway management, considering the Italian territory. Social benefits, because we have reduction in time to complete a project which have direct benefits for society or citizens, also during the very frequent maintenance operation. Regulatory benefits, because lead to better policy development and implementation. Innovation and enterprise benefits, because improved business processes can be concentrating on economical resources. Scientific and technological benefits, which with a real contribution to research into the new application of these methods. Next one. Close with thanking you for your attention, with an image of the road network during Roman Empire at about 100,000 kilometers in whole Europe and Northern Africa. Thank you.
Thanks, Flavio. Impressive technology, and I love your illustrations there. My apologies to you, we seem to have missed a slide at the beginning where you were going to explain about ANAS, and I'm not quite sure what happened there, but
it doesn't matter.
You gave us that slide. Thank you very much.
Say nothing about my activity in
oh, your great experience and the time spent in this business. I really enjoyed working with you on this case. It's one that we still have to finish and we'll publish fairly shortly. But in fact, the first case on Clean Seas Net and the highways in Italy, that neither of those are yet published, but they will be shortly. So we'll be speaking again very shortly to finish that off. Thank you, Flavio, and Alessandro for your support as well.
Yes, of course.
Moving on. It was not only the roads that the Roman ancestors bequeathed to modern Europe. Many of the Roman inventions have military connotations, but in civil society they bequeathed us the aqueduct, thermal heating and concrete. They are also considered instrumental in the spread of the culture of grapevines, and particularly introducing, well, not so much introducing, but developing winemaking in southern France. So winemaking began several millennia before the Romans, but they are considered to have been the main force by which it was spread through France and became the important industry it is today. And the key technology mastered by the Romans was the pruning of vines, which improved both the quality of the wine and the quantity produced. French wine is now famous around the world, thanks in part to the system of appellation d'origine contrôlée, which was introduced in 1935 to control the quality and increase the production standard. And indeed, the AOD system is fundamental to our case that we're going to talk about now, with Jacques Rousseau and Marc Tondrio. But first, a little animation.
Wine is a key part of the French culture and of its economy, worth some 40 billion euros per annum. Faced with intense international competition, French winemakers strive to increase the quality of their wine. This is especially true in the south of France, where cooperative business models are being replaced with ones better adapted to facing the international competition. Now this is helped further where satellite data can help owners improve the quality and hence the revenue from their wines. Terenis, a French startup company, has worked with the Institut Coopératif du Vin, ICV, to develop a new service. Overview has been built using commercial data, but is increasingly using Sentinel-2 data, which makes more frequent observations to offer additional services, hence adding more value. ICV provides advice to the winemakers on which vines to plant, how to manage them, and which crops are best blended together to produce a good wine. Overview helps them in doing this by giving images of the health and maturity of the vines throughout the growing season. This enables better decisions concerning the application of pesticides and fertilizers, optimization of water use, as well as guidance for the best time to harvest. The vineyards and cooperatives are able to increase the value of the wine that they produce through more efficient harvesting and more effective blending of the grapes, leading to higher quality wine. This generates benefits for the surrounding communities by yielding increased income for the vineyards and a higher reputation as a result of selling higher quality and better value wine. The economic benefits are already estimated as being between 5 and 9 million euros per annum. But in addition, Copernicus is adding further value through strong societal benefits and indirect gains to the local rural communities.
So now it's a great pleasure to be joined by Jacques Rousseau from the Institut Coopératif du Vin and Marc Tondrio, who is founder and CEO of Terenis. Marc will shortly join the entrepreneurs panel, so most of the questions here are directed more towards Jacques. So welcome Jacques, welcome Marc. Great that you can be with us. Can I turn first to you, Jacques, and ask a little bit about what ICV does, Institut Coopératif du Vin, what you do, and your specific role? You seem to be you're on mute. That's good.
Okay, okay. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the invitation. So ICV is a French fee-for-service company dedicated to services for the wine industry, wine analysis, wine consultancy, viticultural consultancy, and providing in analytical products.
And how does Overview help with you in your work?
Well, Overview has been used for 13 years now, and with two main targets. One is improving harvest management, and with a better selection of grapes according to wine styles. And the second point is improving fertilizing practices, which leads to a reduction of 20 to 30% of the inputs, and with a better effect.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Marc, can you just explain, tell us a little about how Sentinel data helps with Overview?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for this presentation. Yes, as said by Jacques, we started indeed designing and developing the interview services together with ICD before indeed the launch of the Sentinel satellite. And at that time we were using, and we're still using, more accurate images, mainly from Spot 6 and 7, which gives indeed what the route for the services as described by Jacques about harvesting management and fertilization. But clearly, as soon as we have got access to the Sentinel-2 images, we have started to design new features and new potential services, thanks to the frequency we can get in the images taking. Thanks also, of course, to the fact that these images are free of access, which makes the business case much more attractive, and which allow us to take more frequent images, and which enable us together to develop new services, and among which is the detection of hydric stress, for example, which is becoming more and more a challenge for the vineyard, not only in France, but in Europe in general. The management of water is now becoming also a key challenge. And here clearly that can be done only if we are able to monitor the vine's health in a continuous way, and can be done with for that we are using intensively the Sentinel-2 images.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting approach, one that I think will be discussed a bit further in the panel, because it's fundamental to your business plan. Jacques, so the farmers, the grape growers, the vineyards, how really do they then benefit from EarnerView with Sentinel data? Tell us a bit about your customers, in effect.
Yes, so we have a large range of customers, either private estates or cooperative wineries. And you know that the value of wine can vary from around €1 per liter to some bottles can be sold over 50 or 100 euros a bottle. And what makes the quality of wine is, first of all, the quality of the grapes. And EarnerView helps in selecting the good vineyards adapted to each market. So it helps in private estates. People will be more precise and decide to harvest only half or part of a vineyard because it's got a specific quality. In cooperative wineries, we give the cooperative informations and tell them over 600 hectares, for example, we've got 150 hectares dedicated to rosé, and these are the vineyards. Another 200 for light red wines, and another 200 for 100. Sorry, for coarse red wines.
I'm still waiting to enjoy a glass of red wine with you. Just so that I understand correctly, or we can understand correctly, you're able to help with the knowing when the vines, the grapes, are reaching a certain maturity, and hence which ones to bring together to put into the vats to create the juice, to put into the vats to create the wine. So by doing that, you're improving the efficiency of the harvesting process, and also improving the ability to blend the wine to produce a higher quality wine.
Right. Well, right. But it's rather the second point that means that we can 2 or 3 weeks before harvest select groups of vineyards adapted to each wine profile. But we still need to visit vineyards. It would be very difficult to decide only on satellite data. and but it helps a lot in organizing the work. That means 3 weeks before harvest, the winemakers know, well, we've got such vineyards. On these vineyards, we will aim at this level of maturity. On this one, this other level of maturity. We will prepare the wine processes, which are not exactly the same according to each part. So it's a very important help in producing a range of different quality of wines.
Yeah, which is increases the overall value for the vineyard. Yes. So we have savings on inputs, whether it's on fertilizers, on chemicals, pesticides, and more efficient water use. We have a certain amount of saving on time of going out and visiting, because you're able to prioritize where to go. You have an improvement in efficiency of the harvesting the grapes and delivering them to the vineyard, making the wine, and you have an increase in the overall quality of the wine. So this is really good with multiple benefits. Are there other benefits? You see, we postulated that there are sort of societal benefits coming out of this as well. Is that fair in terms of delivering more value into communities, in helping communities, rural communities, develop better? I'd rather put you on the spot there.
It helps a lot all the technical staff who need to visit vineyards. So they are much more efficient. They can. We all, during harvest preparation, we have limited time, and so we can optimize the visits and organize them easier, so that we are much more efficient when we are visiting the vineyards.
Yeah, so more efficient, and also a greater revenue which flows into the local community as well. Yeah. Okay, Mark, any further thoughts on Sentinel data and how it can help?
Yes, and perhaps just to insist with respect to the societal effects. As I said, we are starting now providing recommendations about potential irrigation or water inputs in the vineyards, and you know that there is an important point, specifically in the south vineyards in France, which is the pending decision about whether or not some vineyards must be irrigated or not, because most of the cases in France is still prohibited, and here clearly the service by using the Sentinel-2 data can also be a good guide for identifying which are the most critical areas where irrigation is definitely needed and will be needed in priority with respect to other ones, and that indeed you have a possibility of making evident that the occurrence of hydric stress is becoming more and more stressing, if I may, and that can be also a help with respect to the authorities to get the authorization for irrigation and irrigating in priority those areas where it's a question of continuity of this economy.
And I think we touched on that also in relation to the impacts of climate change and maybe the moving of the cultivating regions further north, and maybe changing in irrigation, changing in rainfall patterns, etc. So a lot of potential there.
Don't try to justify the vineyard in UK, please.
We're talking about wine in France, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
don't worry, we are able to help English winemakers to cultivate and produce wines. It's our job.
I'm sure you can help them very well as well. Yeah, thank you very much both. Again, a really interesting case and different dimensions. So really good. Thank you very much, and we'll move on. We're going to jump well forward from the Romans now, but our next date is a very important one in the context of our meeting. The date is 1473, and the country we're going to is Poland. You can probably guess. So on the 19th of February in 1473, Nicholas Copernicus was born. He was born into the family of a merchant trading in copper. He is considered to have been very good at languages, and he studied at the University of Warsaw. In 1496, he went to Italy, where he started to take an interest in astronomy, which led to his magnum opus, De Revolutionibus Orbium Celestium, on the heliocentric solar system, which was published only in the year of his death, 1543, so he never got to see the fruits of his life's work. But of course, today he gives his name to the European EO system, which we're here to talk about. Copernicus does not appear to have had much knowledge of farming, but the European satellite system, which is named after him, is helping farmers in Poland and indeed in many other countries to improve their farm management practices. So let's have a, sorry, which microphone is open? Let's hear the animation.
Farmers in Poland are able to benefit from the use of Copernicus data to help them manage their farms more efficiently and effectively. Farmers are called upon to strive towards efficient productivity while simultaneously reducing their environmental impact. Recently, Poland has become a leading producer and exporter of a range of horticultural as well as commodity crops. With growing environmental concerns and pressure from the market, farmers should limit the amounts of fertilizers and pesticides they release in their fields and the quantities of water that they use. StatAgro, a Polish startup company, makes use of Sentinel-2 data to provide information on the state of crops, guiding the application of appropriate amounts of farming inputs at a precise time and/or location. Grupa Azoty, an agrochemicals heavyweight, partner with StatAgro to offer Sentinel-based services to its clients. In doing so, it could react to increased competition in the agrochemicals sector, strengthen its corporate profile, and expand into new markets. Farmers save money from the reduced use of fertilizers, but also benefit from increased yield, fuel savings, and better time management. Governmental agencies responsible for the effective implementation of the Common Agricultural Policy and adherence to environmental regulations benefit from the use of Sentinel-enabled services. The reduced use of pesticides and fertilizers has a positive impact on the environment and on public health. Thanks to Sentinel-2 data, StatAgro allows Polish farmers to increase their yield and productivity while reducing their impact on the environment, leading to economic benefits estimated at 1.1 million euros to 5.3 million as of today, and forecast to increase significantly in the future, as well as helping to secure Grupa Azoty position in the agrochemicals market.
So now I hand over to Lev, who will take us through the case further. Thanks, Lev.
Thanks, Jeff. And actually, I would like to invite Przemysław Jelazowski, Przemek, to the stage. Hi.
Hello,
Hi, Przemek.
I'm here. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you and hear you very well.
Great.
So, Przemek, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about StatAgro and what you have been doing in this case in Poland.
Oh, sure. I was just wondering if I could also show a couple of slides, or it's not really the moment to do so, to illustrate the interface.
If you can do very, very fast, that would be fine.
Yeah, don't worry, I will not take more time than is envisaged for me. Yeah, so we started the SeTagro project in 2013. We are really a bunch of geeks really interested in remote sensing and environmental modeling. To be honest, just seeing how the satellite monitoring sector is developing, the funders, me included, could sense that the right moment comes when satellite monitoring could be really beneficial for the farmer. At the moment, we monitor commercially over 2% of all broad range crops in Poland, so that's around 200,000 hectares. It's quite a bit. We are very happy how the adoption of the service proceeds. And as it was shown in the animation, our business is to help farmers to save money on agrochemicals. I mainly wanted to have the opportunity to show some slides to show the SeTagro interface, which really is a nice control panel for the farmer to appreciate the spatial temporal variability in the crop, as you can hopefully see. And you know, we've been working. We had the service online for the last 7 seasons, and every season there's something new. So at the moment, it's really easy to go from monitoring to an action of turning satellite imagery into prescription maps, which enable so-called variable rate application of an agrochemical. It's usually nitrogen fertilizer, but also other agrochemicals. And you turn an image to a nice instruction that is understood by different kinds of machinery. In certain cases, now we can push instructions all automatically to the machine that's in the field. So it's really 21st century. Something is not so obvious for people thinking about farmers. There are some other aspects of SeTagro. The really important aspect is improving soil surveys, because soil information is really key for making decisions on the farm, and also precision irrigation. This is another important area that we've been focusing on. I can stop sharing.
Thanks a lot, Przemek. And from what I understand, in pretty much the whole proposition that you have presented, Copernicus Sentinel data are an important component, right?
Yeah, it's very important. In fact, I really like to tell the story how the year 2016 has been a turning point for us, and I guess for everybody in this sector. In fact, SeTagro service was operational from 2015, but in that year we unfortunately have overpromised in a couple of cases. We had the service based on Landsat and also on a little bit of commercial data, which was very expensive. And only with the appearance on Sentinel-2, we could see that, wow, this is the moment when we can claim that we have an operational system that really helps the farmer when it's needed.
Thanks, Przemek. Now, this is a very, very important message, and indeed it echoes across many of the cases we have analyzed. We will discuss more about your experience in that, because we have a panel coming up. But now I would hand back to Jeff, because we're moving to the next case. Thanks a lot, Przemek.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lev. So just a short interruption by me. So born just 3 years after the death of Copernicus, the Dane Tycho Brahe built upon Copernicus' ideas, but whilst recognizing that the moon orbits the Earth and the planets orbit the Sun, he still considered that the Sun orbited the Earth. In his last years of life, Johannes Kepler worked with him and went on to develop the 3 laws of planetary motion. Galileo, of course, famously carried the heliocentric argument to what we know today, whilst the work of Kepler was continued by Isaac Newton, a seriously clever guy, to develop the universal laws of motion which are so important to the correct orbiting of the satellites on which our work is based. Whilst in Poland, the farm fields tend to be very large and open, in Denmark, where we are now going, the fields are on average much smaller and cropping patterns are quite different. Despite this, wheat is also an important crop in Denmark, and the application of satellite technology is essentially the same. Another startup and winner of the ESA Masters Prize created a business serving farmers, FieldSense, and let's now hear about the case.
In Denmark and many other countries, images from Sentinels are used to help farmers identify where their crops need attention and to prioritize their daily activities throughout the growing season. Modern farmers are faced with increasing demands by regulatory bodies, especially in relation to managing the environment, at the same time as the industry faces massive change from the use of new technology. Copernicus Sentinel data can help meet both of these challenges by offering farmers timely information on their fields and crops, especially when spread over a large area. FieldSense, a Danish startup and winner of the ESA Copernicus Masters, has developed a service for farmers in Denmark which allows rapid identification of problems due to pests, diseases, or water stress. From the warmth of their offices, farmers are able to see where crops are stressed and where they may need to take action without the need to walk the fields. This saves them time and helps reduce their use of chemicals by reacting faster when needed. Regulators and farm cooperatives are both able to provide support to farmers through the use of shared and complementary data. Citizens and communities are able to enjoy a better environment with less excess chemicals running off into local rivers and lakes. The use of Copernicus data is transforming agricultural working practices. The economic benefit in Denmark today is 4 to 8 million euros. But as the use expands to more farmers and historical data becomes available over multiple seasons, the benefit is estimated to rise to 55 million euros in the future, with increasing societal benefits through reduced chemicals in the environment.
So back to you, Leif.
Thanks, Jeff. So we're looking clearly at a relatively similar case, but as Jeff said earlier, by building a portfolio of cases, we're also able to see different patterns and obviously similarities and if you wish, unique features. So I would like Stefan Pedersen from FieldSense to join me on the stage. Hi,
Hello.
Stefan. And describe to us a little bit your story, a little bit the FieldSense story.
Yeah, so hello, my name is Stefan and I'm one of the co-founders of FieldSense, and I've been in charge of designing our services since day one. And I guess our journey started off very similarly to that of SatAgro. And we wanted to build this AI-enabled FMIS that would on its own detect diseases and crop stress in the field to kind of alleviate the farmer of some of his work and help him prioritize where to go in the field for scouting trips and where to set up irrigation equipment and where to take soil samples. And in that journey, we kind of figured that some of these issues were very dependent on weather conditions. And in our search for affordable historical weather data, we ended up finding our own profitable future instead. So at this point, we're actually more relying on the profits that we make from our weather stations, but in using the Sentinel data, we actually developed naturally in that direction. And currently we're sitting on just below 2,000 weather stations in the Easter Sea area, and are still developing this FMIS platform, but in closer collaboration with local farm supply companies and regulatory bodies. So our quite tech-heavy team has pivoted quite heavily on our journey, but yeah, we're still depending on Sentinel data to this day. Yeah.
And could you actually tell us a little bit more about this collaboration you have with other actors in the Danish scene, and how you're basically serving the agriculture sector there?
Yes, so in the beginning we were closely working with service providers to the farms. In Denmark, a lot of people are outsourcing their tilling, their spraying, all those jobs to local service providers. And these service providers were at another technical efficiency. And we're working with them as kind of our lead users to try and be on the forefront of the development. But it turns out that the technology that we were developing felt like it was a few years ahead of its time. And we're also collaborating with these regulatory bodies that I mentioned. And in Denmark, there's a tradition for these umbrella corporations being the predominant one. And since it's publicly funded, it was very difficult for us as a startup to actually compete with that. So instead of being this all-purpose FMIS, we've decided that we're better suited using our expert knowledge in developing a specialized tool and then seeking to integrate into those platforms. And this is also this has affected the way that we've decided to grow our company, and one of our investors is one of these local supply companies, and we've sort of outsourced the brand of this FMIS to their corporation, because they have another pondus on the market, and they have another way of distributing this system, and we can simply do what we love and build the technology behind and help them create something cool. And we see ourselves as this digitalization body of their organization, and we help each other very much in that regard. And this is also the way that we're pushing into different markets. This is by establishing cooperations with local trusted advisors. We don't necessarily have the competences to tell German farmers how they best manage their fields, because there are so many local climate details that influence that. So we're taking our tools and our competences and then joining forces with local advisors and building and adapting our tools to the different markets. And there are, of course, integrations into the Danish platforms as well, mostly regarding the weather data, so that we fuel the models and the regulations that they employ on the Danish markets. But yeah, so we're trying to position ourselves as kind of this specialist tool that we push into other platforms.
Oh, that's definitely a very good paradigm, and thanks a lot for bringing it up in such a meticulous way. I think this gives lots of food for thought for many of us. So thanks a lot, Stefan. We will again be discussing in a moment at the panel for entrepreneurship. But for now, I would like to thank you and hand back to Jeff.
Thanks, Leif. You could go on and do the questions. Of course, you're going to be on stage again in a minute. We had a couple of questions. First one was for Teresa. I think Teresa is hopefully still with us. It was looking at the. No, I don't see.
I am here.
You're here. Great. Okay, I didn't. I was trying to find you. So the question was about Clean CNET covering the Azores.
Yeah, I saw. Yes, it covers Azores. Azores is part of the coverage area of Portugal. Yes.
Okay. I mean, what is the total area of Clean CNET? Maybe you just want to say a little bit more about that.
I said something. Let me give me just a second. If you can pass to another, I don't know.
Okay. But it's European territories as well as European mainland, isn't it?
European coastal waters.
Yeah.
And also we provide service also to beneficiary countries of SafeMed, the third countries, not only EU. We also provide service to Albania, Montenegro, Black and Caspian Sea non-EU countries, and basically is this.
So do you cover, for example, this is only taken at random, Guadeloupe or French overseas dependencies? Yeah. Okay. There's a question from Jon Hoffman regarding our assessment of the monetary benefits. Maybe I don't know if you want to say anything, or I can.
Well, I think this question is a bit more to you because it's about the figure that you calculated in the study.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jon, no, it doesn't include the fines at all. Our calculations are based on time-saving, more efficient processes, but the fines are collected by member states. There are very few prosecutions that result in fines, but they are there, and there are various processes going on. But no, fines are not included in that 10 to 14 million. The benefits are coming through other means. There was a question from Tobias Geiger. Well, there's a nice observation from him about showing snow-covered mountains in Denmark, which I think we'll take on the chin and correct. But another one about for Flavio, but I don't think Flavio, are you still around? Alessandro? I mean, I can comment that landslides obviously are a very important factor in the roads management, but at the moment there is no real system available for early warning assessments. What they are looking is where ground is seen to be moving and where that is influencing either the construction works, and frankly, primarily it's more the construction works today even than the operational aspects of roads management. So I think it's fair to say that today, no, there's no warning assessments, but there is a lot of research going on in that area, and hopefully in the future there could be greater links made between potential risk, the climatic conditions, the rainfall, etc., and identifying the risk. Yeah, I could say more, but are there any other questions? Okay.
I think there is one on the Danish presentation.
Yeah. Stefan, do you wish to comment on this? This is about the build-up of data over the years, and hence the ability to get a better knowledge.
I guess I can. What we see the most is that the historical data allows the farmers to identify growth zones on the field, so zones that behave similarly across seasons, and thereby they can adapt their strategies, reduce the input of specific spots and increase in others. We've also seen some, I don't know if they're sort of gray area, but some of our customers have kind of used or misused the platform to sort of scout different field plots in order to trade soil, simply because of the arrangement of the soil, but also the quality of the soil. So having access to historical data actually allows them to optimize their yield in different ways. But the most important one is distinguishing these zones from actual in situ issues that arise.
The specifics that we looked at in the case was about snails, and
that's one of the one of the reasons why having the historical data is important, because we need this baseline map to subtract from the rapid changes. So and snails actually develop quite fast, and we can see that on the weekly imagery.
So it enables the farmer not just to know that there's a problem going on, but know that it's probably snails, because that happened in the same place 2 years ago, and the conditions are similar. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Question from Michael Bock. How are the economic benefits estimated? Is it potential for the customers of the company, or for France or Europe? And the answer is that it's all those. I mean, what we're looking at is the benefits at each tier. So the benefits that the supplier may reach by having a product that can be sold in a bigger market, the potential for the customers of the supplier, which is in our case is the primary user, and how they're benefiting from it, and then how those which are depending on the services of the primary user are also benefiting and also able to benefit, and how that feeds through into society as well. So we have these 4 tiers that we address. Michael, please open up your microphone and come in, and if that's answered your question, or if you have any further points. No.
In such case, maybe I could very quickly complement that, Jeff.
Yeah, please.
And I think it's an important, sort of subtlety there, that in most cases we are really looking at benefits, including economic ones, as they are actually experienced or at least perceived by the actors themselves. So they're not built on a hypothetical scenario. But then, of course, we're looking into different extrapolation threads, if you wish, which we take either at the geographic level, or increased market penetration, or better adoption of the technology. And this is also an area where the methodology that has been implemented in all cases has been improving over time, and an area which in many ways would benefit from more work going in the future.
Yes, I agree. It's something that we can develop further.
Yes, thank you. You can hear me now?
Yes.
I finally managed. Yes, I understand now a little bit. Not totally. Maybe have to look into reports. And before I further ask the question, one, it was just a question. If you presented, if it's is it the geographical area, or do you kind of like, is it the economic value for Europe, for one country? This was kind of the question, as you pointed out here.
Please, it would be great to join us tomorrow afternoon in the sort of more open discussion session, where we will be looking very much at questions like this, and how we can improve, how we can do more, and give better answers for people. So it would be great to see you there. Let's move on. The next is a panel. Just find my notes. So, as I mentioned earlier, along with the case studies, we have performed a number of cross-cutting studies, taking advantage of the portfolio cases and their variety. This has led to a number of cross-cutting reports which are available. Consequently, we've assembled 3 panels during the workshop to explore some of these topics deeper and with key stakeholders. So with no further ado, let me launch the first panel, which is focused on entrepreneurship and innovation, and invite Lef to explain further and to welcome the panelists. Lef, over to you.
Thanks, Jeff. And now we will indeed change a little bit the way all the audience now sort of follows what we're discussing. It will be a panel, it will be a bit more lively discussion, a little bit less formal, if you wish. So you're seeing Przemek, Stefan, Mark, and Thomas will be joining shortly. Exactly. And you see also my colleague Dimitri. I mean, this is the first panel which looks into one of the main dimensions of benefit that we have been looking throughout the different cases, and this is on entrepreneurship and innovation. And indeed, a common thread that we found when we were looking into the case studies, but one that we also probed into through a cross-cutting analysis that Dimitri will be presenting in a moment, is that many companies see their business model becoming viable or more viable, or see anyway their overall business aspirations being supported through the use of Copernicus Sentinels in their products. And this is what we will be trying to look into now. So we will not be looking into a case-by-case discussion, but rather how the different entrepreneurs have perceived this part working for them over the years. And of course, there are different stories. Some of the participants represent startups, some more established companies. So we hope to show this flavor as well. I would like actually to start off the discussion with some visual trigger, and this will be provided by Dimitri, who has run a survey over this time, and he will be providing some very interesting findings that we will be then commenting.
Thanks, Lev. Yeah, so the survey which Lefteris is referring to was carried out as part of one of the cross-cutting reports within the SeBS activity. And it was carried out alongside the Ersk Industry Survey, but it focused on startups. And what I'm about to show you is an extract from that survey, which will be available on the SeBS website in very shortly. It's in final review. There is a link that will be made available here as well, but it's the same website as the event. And the question we asked our respondents, and there were 43 startups who responded to this survey, is, would your business model be possible without Copernicus? And actually, what we found was fascinating. 43 is not statistically significant, but what's interesting about it is that these are all startups, I mean, operational, formed in the last 5 years. These are companies at the front line of innovation as far as EON Copernicus is concerned. And what you can see from this bar chart here is column chart is very clear that I mean, you're talking about 78% of them see it as absolutely central to their business. So it's possible, but less efficient without the data for 40% of them. And for 38%, it's absolutely the basis for their competitive advantage. And then there's a small number of the remainder which see it as the business model would not be possible at all, or it would be possible but less profitable. And I think this gives us a very interesting hook to start tagging into this discussion, Lev. So I'll throw it back to you.
Thanks, Dimitri. And actually, I would like to start with Przemek, who already kind of gave us a flavor on that. So we see here that many perceive Copernicus Sentinel data as a catalyst to start their business. I guess this applies to Satagro. So if you could, tell us a little bit in practice how that has worked. I would say complementing what you have already presented.
Okay. Because I guess my previous comment was really quite a lot about this, but I'm happy to add to that. And our perspective may be interesting in that we are dealing with both non-commercial and commercial data, and quite a lot of it in both categories. And still, even though we can really appreciate the extra boost of the service that we can get from commercial data, we are, for example, partners with Planet Labs. I must say that that data like Sentinel-2 is really the enabler of our business. We still have many customers who want the cheaper service as cheap as possible. They are okay with not the ultimate quality, and so yeah, for them this is how it looks from their point of view. But from our point of view, the difference between the service based on commercial or non-commercial data is huge, because when we have a service that's based on, let's say, Sentinel 1 and 2, then considering automation of data flows, the marginal cost of additional hectare of the service provision is practically zero, is near zero. For a hectare of service that has the commercial data component, this is a completely different story, because we practically pay a flat fee per hectare to commercial data providers. So from our point of view, there is a huge difference between the data coming for free or not, and it will be very difficult for us to function without the freely available sensor data.
And if I may follow this up, and then I would invite also Stefan to comment on that, because in the case of SatAgro, and in the particular case that we have studied in SeBS, we saw how Grupa Azoty, a major agro-fertilizer company, sort of bought into what you were offering in a seemingly paradoxical manner, because they were ending up offering to farmers something that would help them use less fertilizer. But would you agree that if it weren't for Copernicus Sentinels being the engine of this service, and you had to do it at a much higher cost, you wouldn't have someone like Grupa Azoty as a client, or it would have been anyway more difficult?
Yeah, it would be more difficult. That's for sure. In fact, I mean, in reality, with a partner like Grupa Azoty, this issue is, it has to be said, a little bit less critical. Okay, but it still affects the volumes and prices that we're talking about, and it's really tied to the willingness to pay on part of anybody that we are speaking with, and it has to be said that, you know, our target audiences are still not very well educated, so they're really price sensitive. This is our high priority, to actually bring down the cost barrier of entering this kind of service as much as possible. And we even have a freely available service, because we see that the education of the market is still a really important component. It has changed a lot over the last years. The awareness is much greater now, but still a lot needs to be done.
And Stefan, would you relate to those comments? Would you sort of have to share a different view or not? I think you might be muted, Stefan.
Good. Yeah, it sounds a lot like our experience all the way through, and we've also been trying to sell commercial data to farmers, but what we really ran into is that there are definitely diminishing returns on the quality of the data. So the equipment simply can't handle the high quality, and it actually poses more of an issue when we get into higher resolution imagery, because all the organic structures of the fields become visible, which is very cool and has a value in regards to getting advice. But when it comes to translating it into spraying swaths and dividing the fields into zones, it's not of additional value unless you transform it into a grid-based map. So that type of arguments really keeps our services on the publicly available data, since the returns on turning to the commercial data is still very marginal, and the effort in making that transition is not worth it yet, not for us.
I see. And actually, maybe here it's a nice opportunity to sort of flip the coin and go to Mark, who was telling us earlier that you have started and you still do use commercial data before you were doing so with Sentinel. So how does this work out if you start from a different starting point?
Yes, indeed. It's quite easy to say that it's really depending on the application you are targeting, because it's clear that when you when you know quite well the date where you have to take the information, and for applications where the accuracy, meaning the spatial accuracy, is key, then it's clear that it's better to take into account commercial data with higher accuracy, and which at the end gives more added value to the application, because it's really a matter of what is the value added to the end user processes, and to compare that with the cost which you have to afford for the procurement of the data. On the other side, when you have applications for continuous monitoring of what is happening on Earth, and specifically in this case in the fields or in the vineyard, then of course the Sentinel data and the Copernicus data are very well suited for that, because it allows you to detect changes, to see anomalies, and so on. And in this case, the spatial accuracy is not as critical, depending, of course, also on the size of the field, because as everybody knows, the vineyards parcels are much smaller than the big cereal fields, so it's really depending. All that is a matter of optimization that at the end is our job to be able to select the better source for that. Just a point on which I would like really to insist on is because we were talking about quality of data, we shouldn't just highlight that the quality is a mixture at the end of both, meaning the spatial accuracy and the spectral capacity. And we must, and I would like really here highlight that in terms of Sentinel, and especially Sentinel-2 satellites here, it's clear, it's true that the accuracy is less than commercial satellites, some commercial satellites with the 10-meter resolution, but the quality of the spectral analysis brought by Sentinel-2 is tremendous, meaning it's really something which is very helpful as well, specifically for all the applications dealing with vegetation monitoring at large, where at the end all is to get access to the spectral reflectance of the crop which are observed, and that's absolutely key for our applications.
Oh, thanks for bringing this up, Mark. Indeed, we haven't really touched upon that so far in the discussion today, but it is indeed a key component, and it does translate to different benefits as well. So thanks for bringing this up. Now, turning to Thomas, who hasn't been on the stage yet, so welcome Thomas. So Thomas Hege, CEO and founder of EOMAP, and also not working in agriculture as your main, I guess, domain, but in other sectors as well. You have also been around for a long time before the Sentinels were available. I guess at some point, once this became available, your business model was evolving through the use of Copernicus Sentinel data. So if you can walk us through a little bit your story there.
Yes. So we're working since 16 years in this market, or I would say that in the aquatic sector, so for marine applications and inland water applications for industry and clients and agencies. We have been developed the market, I think, significantly in this time over the time. And when Sentinels came up, of course, it was still in the time where the market was market awareness was growing, and I would say that it's still doing, but meanwhile we have very stable revenues coming from these various client groups. So of course the Sentinels contribute. I would say since the beginning we have a mix of commercial very high resolution satellites that we use and public. In the beginning, of course, Landsat and other satellites, and then now from the public satellites, the Sentinels makes the largest portion clearly, and also they are clearly a mix in almost all services that we provide. So they are very relevant, very clear to say this. Turnover-wise, maybe I would say at least at 50% of contracts, 50% of turnover, they are part of the mixture of the commercial contracts. And for the others, they partly still contribute, even if we use very high resolution satellites. So yes, they are absolutely important. Yeah.
And actually, this opens the possibility to discuss another aspect which Semek kind of touched upon, which is that it's that of scaling effectively, and the ability to serve additional clients, additional markets, because the cost of building on your workflows and adding extra surface or extra cases is not that much. If actually all of you could in a sort of round table make a comment on that, because this is something that we have seen in many of the cases we were studying.
I guess I can take our case on that. I guess with our cooperation with the local supply companies, it's not so much us that benefit from this scaling opportunity, but more the supply company. So by having the global accessibility of the satellite imagery, we can point out which fields have variability, and subsequently the supply company will go and sell the farmer different services like soil scannings with soil optics equipment, and that again leads to, well, you need this specific strategy to get a more homogeneous field, so we need to sell you some lime or some specific fertilizers, and then it's basically repeat until the technological level of the farmer has improved and they need to upgrade their machinery. So we fit better into their sales pipeline than having our own sales pipeline.
Thanks. That's actually very interesting. Who would like to comment next? Thomas, yes.
Yeah, for us, I could add for the scaling up, this continuous availability of the Copernicus, of the Sentinel data is really a growth element nowadays, because we put more and more services on the clouds and the services and self-enabled clients more and more also. So and there are also several services which would, I think, not exist nowadays. If you take, for example, ERC's mixture of very different resolved high-resolution temporal, high-resolution water quality services, it needs a high resolution in all terms, and the mixture of satellites, and here Sentinel-2 is clearly a very important role, which otherwise the necessary temporal resolution would not be available if we only would have all the other satellites.
See? Yeah, please, Semek.
Here I would like to add that for a company like us, it's actually really important, and it's an important question that we keep asking ourselves. If we should be the ones who deal with all the information and mastering the whole processing chain from Copernicus servers to our end user, or if we should outsource this to somebody, and we are constantly looking at trying to assess how much it costs us, because I mean we can scale up through automation, but we still need some people to maintain all of this, and there's still a component of they need to add somebody every so many hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of hectares of service. On the other hand, we could be just buying the process data from another company, but this would turn the whole business model to the model that I've mentioned before, that you have when you're buying commercial data. So somebody can commercialize Sentinel data and then sell a service by hectare. So for us, just wanted to point out that for a specialized service like us, these are really important questions to ask.
Oh, and it's true, I guess, that we do see this diversification of business models arising as people start seeing different market realities. So we have seen, companies trying to sell pre-processed data using Sentinels. We also see companies somehow similar to yours doing a sort of white labeling paradigm where they stop earlier before they reach the final customer. So I guess there are many variations. And Mark, would you like to comment on this part?
Yes, just perhaps two points on that. The first point is not to limit that much the Copernicus services only to the data. We should not forget that there are also some core services. So of course, because we have talked a lot about the agriculture application, they are not so much used for this sector, but for other sectors, some core services like the land use or land cover services can be very useful and very valuable for some applications dealing with land management and analysis of the territories for the regional or local authorities. So that's something we should not forget, these core services as such. The second point on which I would like to react is not to forget also the added value that we are bringing, meaning we are not just selling images which are free of charge, because it would be something a bit tricky, if I may say. No, there are not only processing and making access to the data, but also adding value thanks to processing indeed these images in order to get access to the valuable information out of the image, and also compare that with some models. In our cases, we are using agronomic models, which are normally demonstrating what should be the right biophysical parameters of the crop at the time of the observation. All that is indeed what we are adding above the images themselves in order to get an appropriate information which could be then used for taking a decision. I think it's something which is the word adding value is really key for that.
No, and again, very keen and sharp observation, and it's something that I think when it comes to SeBS and this workshop, it's really inbuilt, because we were always looking into operational cases, and operational cases means that all of you, companies like you, bring real value further down, and this of course relies not only on the data, but on the processing you do, on the models you build, and so on and so forth. In that regard, and before, yes, Thomas, please.
Just to this point, because as this was discussed both by right now, so there's a high value when we talk about global business expansion. So if we have a industry policy, and surely we are talking about industry policies that want to push the positioning of the companies here in Europe, and global business expansion, then the value comes, of course, with the quality of the products. And we are selling and integrating, well, we live by selling and integrating information products. If these information products are the same as others could provide and sell anywhere, then there would be not a big benefit to the client and also not to us as companies. So very clearly, the proprietary technology that we bring in, as long as these provide, of course, much better qualities and better services to the clients, are the value. So I would slightly discriminate here then also the kind of businesses that we are doing and also the chances that we have. If we think about expansion of commercial services, then we have to be in mind that this will be only to a portion rely on information which is available to everybody. Or if this relies on really something where we invest in since years and decades.
Oh, absolutely. That's that's a strong message as well. I wanted, before we pass on the floor again to Dimitri, to ask something that has sort of inspired me when I was coming across that in the different cases, which is that there's a benefit to entrepreneurship and innovation which trickles further down. So far we have been discussing your own case, but in many cases we see a primary user who needs to innovate in order to receive this value from you and the service from you and realize what they're doing. So if you could share a quick thought about how you see your own users, integrating in the workflows things that they were not using before and managing to do so well with your help, obviously. I think that would also be an interesting aspect to discuss.
Should we comment?
Yeah, please go ahead.
The one scenario that comes to mind is that we can of course control what happens to the data in our platform, but once the user downloads a variable rate application map, we are no longer in control. And we've seen a lot of people then load the data into other Geese systems and then make adjustments because we were too slow to live up to their expectations. So kind of like, applying a headland zone all around the border, stuff like that. So we see them appropriating other types of technology or other types of software simply to then keep working with the data that we provide. And the same goes for the weather station case, that they then start to interact with the weather data, load it into Excel, apply their own models. They know that, 60 growth degree days after the first spotting of gull midge, I have to do a coverage spraying, stuff like that. So they get really engaged in the agronomic parts as well, having the data available. I think that's an interesting development, and of course I would like to, capture all the cool features and keep the customer in the platform. But sometimes you also have to, let them run.
Choose your battles.
Yeah.
But here, I guess it's very important that you allow your customers to get the data, whatever format. Not everybody does that, and this is an important aspect.
From our perspective, I understood the question how clients change their workflows and using this data. I could add that, for example, for the hydrographic sector, where we are working also since many years, so it was a long way, I would say. But then since 5, 6, 7 years, every year we could feel how this changed. So first trials and so on, maybe then, I would say already almost 13 years ago, but then by industry, I would say, then the agencies took it up maybe starting 8 years ago from this drive from the highest level. But of course, these are single personalities. If the HO director at that time is open to technology and industry, and this was the case, then this opens the discussion on the member states of the hydrographic organizations worldwide, and this has driven the further process that they took it up. And nowadays, so first of course just buying data, buying data. Nowadays that we are providing them the licenses, the technology that they processes in the offices on their own. So and that we see as well now, back to the industry, that they are taking up this integration level as well. And I see some other sectors like inland water agencies also on some years behind, but I see just a delay of maybe 4 or 5 years, and I see this at the moment also in a very good growth rate. As long as we can translate this value, and I think we can increasingly good translate the value for the clients, there is a process, some communication, some patience, of course. Natural, I would say, with new technologies.
Oh, that's nice to hear. It's a positive picture being painted there. Maybe yes, Steph.
It's just a short comment. I think that from the process, we've also learned that you have to be modest and realize that whatever platform you're making and whatever data enrichment you're making has to exist in a technological ecosystem that involves a lot other systems, and having that free flow of data between the platforms will end up giving a lot of value to the farmer or whatever end user we have. And I remember a few years ago at John Deere convention in Mannheim, this was also the topic around all these cloud platforms having different policies of how much data should be open to the farmer and to transport into different clouds. And I think that learning that you can add value and still be part of that community or cloud community is also a viable business plan.
Oh, definitely.
We don't have to rule the world, all of us.
I think at least that's sort of high level concepts. Yeah, we see a lot of effort going into these sort of governance models, especially in agriculture and data sharing and so on. Unless Mark has a quick comment on that, I would actually pass the floor to Dimitri to challenge you with a different dimension.
No, just a short word on what Stephen just said. We must also be aware that more and more, indeed, some farmers or wine growers are taking care as well about the data and where their data are going to, and that's something on which is starting now to become a real matter of awareness, I would say, in the mind of the farmers, because they are starting to be conscious that by providing all these data to some big brother somewhere could be also a matter of certain danger at the end, and that's something on which we have to think about, because it's quite sensitive sometimes.
Absolutely.
For a good reason. In Denmark, there are government administered services that monitor all the fields and color them red, green, and yellow, and then you get a weekly email. Oh, if you have red fields, you have to do this and that, and it's the governance is already in place there. So you're definitely right.
That's I mean that's a huge discussion in its own sake, I think. But now I would like to pass to Dimitri, who will present to us some additional findings, and then we will move back to discuss it.
Thanks, Lev. I mean, I think there's several discussions in their own rights that have been sort of triggered by the comments. This idea that the innovation is kind of pushed onto the user, the idea of users starting to tinker with the data, and the whole story about data management. Really interesting subject. Also, Thomas, your comment about the individual personalities within public authorities being the drivers for uptake of technology within public sector. I mean, this is something we'll explore tomorrow morning at 10:30 in the panel on regulatory benefits. So look out for that. Just now back to here, I would like to show you another piece of the report that we produced. And this one's all about barriers to customer uptake. And again, we can hook a lot of these results onto things that have been mentioned. So I think, Przemek, you said that there's still a lot of work to be done to generate awareness around EO data and around the benefits of EO data. So that is the number one reason why our respondents felt customers were not taking up, a lack of awareness about the usefulness of the data. Second place is this topic that EO data forms part of a bigger solution, and customers don't see the big picture. They're unwilling to invest in that bigger solution. Then there are some other nuanced variations on this theme. So awareness, but not convinced. Solutions are seen as too complex, 15%, and a lack of conviction to switch from non-EO based solutions. When I examined these results in the report, I concluded that those three central reasons could be reflected back to the service provider, back to the EO community, as a failure of our sales tactics, as a failure of our argumentation, as a failure of our communication and awareness raising, which of course is point one again. But that they are aware but not convinced seems to me to be a really criminal reflection on the ability of our providers to sell these services. And then we have other and very, very low percentage about this long-term commitment. And I think that the free and open policy very much supports that. Lev, maybe, because there is another slide on market barriers, but if at this point, perhaps we could generate a few comments, I think that would be useful.
Please, yeah, the floor is open.
Thomas is ready to comment.
So, Dimitri, I very much like what you said. I fully support that actually this ball goes back to us providers. So if we don't deliver the quality, and that's why in the first instance clients are not convinced, then it's clear that this is back to us. It's not a barrier, it's something that we have to solve before. That's, I think, in line with my comment that only if we can position this better quality, proprietary solutions, so that's the way, I think. Or like as we discussed before, the resolution that is enabled, the temporal resolution by the Sentinels is also one thing, which if you have once one record per year, then he's not convinced that this makes any sense for his solution. If you have many, then so just as a very easy example. But reading this directly, well, you are right. It's the question of the level of our business, where we are here, if this is reflected as barrier or not, the level of integration, the awareness, the convincingness, and so on.
And thanks, Thomas. And I mean, of course, this, you must recall, this is just the those startups who responded. It's not all the startups. We of course cannot catch them all. And of course, some of these issues are related to the growing pains. But I'm very pleased that you recognize that. I mean, there is more to be done also on the part of the educating the users, but also on the part of the convincing the users. So the offer has to stand on its own feet. Yes, please, Stefan.
So I think in our case, the utility when we talked to the Danish farmers was very much attributed to the temporal resolution of the imagery. So not necessarily the spatial or the spectral, but the temporal. And I think that was perhaps a mistake from our part, that we didn't see the bigger picture, that the historical data could tell something structurally about the fields, but you had to have the newest picture to get the most recent update on the field, and you couldn't use any of the other data. And that idea just kind of stuck in our customers' head, and it's been very hard to educate them about the value of the historical data and what that can actually benefit them. Yeah.
Yes, and in our, sorry to intervene, and furthermore, in our special case here, indeed the fact that we are providing information by using satellite images, it's clear that at the beginning and still now, it's something which is not natural, I would say, specifically for some farmers or wine growers which are more attached to the earth, I would say, and typically you know that drones or UAV have been used at one time intensively for monitoring some fields. At the end, benefits were not that clear, but just it was really difficult to explain that from 600 or 800 kilometers we can see valuable information which can be useful, including on Earth. That's something which is still not obvious, and that's clearly kind of education. Having said that, I fully share the point raised by Thomas. The quality of the service is also key, because we are asking our customers or end users to change somehow their process, and that can have a very important consequences, and including on their own revenues. And for that, they must rely on us and be confident, and we have to take that into account in the quality of the information we are delivering, because that can be a real killer if you start providing information which at the end destroy, indeed, not destroy, but make the process less efficient. And I would just say on that, but that's something on which I'm trying to push at Earth level as well. The problem also is that there is no referee in this field, meaning there is no certification, no labelization of the services, and which means that perhaps it's a lack of maturity of the sector as well. But that means that it could certainly help for gaining confidence from the end users community if we could be able to say, look, our solution have been validated or certified or something like that by such or such authorities. Today, it's not the case, so we have to convince.
Thank you, Mark. And again, I think these points raise a great deal of food for thought and for further discussion. In the interest of time, I think we are going to need to close pretty soon. Now, I did have another slide, which is about the market barriers. And I'm just going to show you that one. Sorry. This was actually, okay. So we have a slide about the origin of the business idea, which is a little bit a different direction. So I just show you this for the purpose of your interest. But I think we have now time for a closing question before we
I think what would be nice, because indeed we do have to close very soon, is just as a sort of lasting message and lasting image, if we can have a very, very quick round, really like a couple of words each on what's the biggest challenge that you are faced with and that you would like to sort of leave on the table, and tomorrow we have a much more time for more open discussion, and maybe we can touch upon some of these challenges. So if we can start with Przemek.
Yeah, I'll start, and I cannot promise that I will not switch off in a couple of minutes because I have to pick up my kids. My comment is that we see that the big barrier is a lack of digitalization, and it's really rightly so that there's so much being said about the need for agriculture to go into the digital agriculture area. We joke quite often that our grandparents or great-grandparents were taking part in electrification of the countryside, and we are doing the wave of digitalization of the countryside. We very often approach the farm and they don't have any electronic borders or crop fields. They have nothing. So there's a lot of groundwork to be done. And I know that maybe in Poland, there's a bit more to be done in this regard in Denmark, for example. But still, overall, we see that if we could bring everybody a bit higher up in this level of digitalization, then would really help our industry.
Thanks. Stefan, you would like to?
I totally agree, and that's part of what I meant with the technological ecosystem, that it has to mature, it has to coexist, and we have to mature all parts of it. And basically, we're asking them to gamble their time and resources, their livelihood, based on our advice and our data. So being credible is very important, and we're trying to battle that with an entry-level product, we call it, with the weather station that you can put in the soil, you can go outside, you can kick it, and you can see it. It's measuring stuff. And then we're trying to weave in the Earth observation data again. So it's kind of a reboot of the whole way of teaching our customers about the data. So we're trying to address that challenge, but it takes time.
It does. Mark, you're next.
Yeah, just perhaps to add one point we didn't have time to discuss, which is in the overall processing chain, we have data, good quality of data, and hopefully for continuity of data as well. We have the processes and the algorithms, but there is a gap in between, which is the clouds, meaning the processing clouds, which are more and more necessary by taking into account the level and the quantity of data we have to manage. And here it's fair to say that we are very, very depending on other providers, which are not majority not European, and that's certainly I would say a gap in the chain, which can be a weak point in the future. So that's something on which I would also like to open the discussion in the next future. We had some DAYs. The future of them seems to be questionable, but even with that, it's not enough for compared to the Google or Amazon processing.
Yeah, that is a big question and a big topic indeed. So Thomas, you will be the one to really close the session.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, there are several challenges on different levels. One, of course, also we discussed to understand how clients usually can assimilate our information and how we build these services, but that's not the point. One of the big challenges to mention here is clear that I would say to develop a common clear industry policy in Europe, both on commission level, but as well on national level. And I would say as well in Germany, we have very much also this gap that there is not a clear industry policy that, of course, always the intention is to push forward then the commercialization and the international business. But just for the example of the Copernicus regulation 2014, so excellent in mind in terms of industry policy, but nothing really followed on that. I would say even the opposite development happened. So that means there needs to be political discussion on the industry policy, which should further foster and open this market. I would say the circumstances are excellent. Markets are opening very clear, and everything is developing very good. But it needs to also, I would say, political discussion how this further will be continued. For example, the update of the regulation is missing. It's said it is no more existent, but a new is not there. Okay, well, that would be my challenge.
Thanks, Thomas, and thanks to all of you. I think you have given us really a very rich collection of insights and your own perspectives and things to think about and things to discuss also tomorrow. So again, big thanks to all our panelists. We will close now. In about 5 minutes we will start again. So there is a small break now in the program, so everyone can run away for 5 minutes and come back. But please do come back. It's equally interesting following that. So now I guess we just stop here and we will be live again in the link will stay on, but it will be going on with the rest of the cases in 5 minutes. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, so to continue our story, at the time that Tycho Brahe was exploring the universe, virtually of course, Others were exploring the earth, discovering new lands and with them new flora and fauna. In around 1570, Spanish conquistadors returning from Latin America introduced the potato into Europe. Surprisingly, it took some time to become accepted, maybe because at first it was seen as a peasant crop. Before spreading throughout Europe, it had a higher calorie count than other root crops grown at the time, and so it helped drive population growth, particularly at the end of the 18th century. Whilst quickly becoming popular in most European countries, in France it only shook off its poor image when a certain Antoine Parmentier, a physician, promoted it as a sound dish. As a result of his efforts, he was rewarded by Napoleon I, and now has several dishes named after him, including, of course, the hachis parmentier, or shepherd's pie in English. Potatoes became an important crop in much of Northern Europe, including in Belgium, where this is still the case today. Belgium claims to be the home of the friet and to be the #1 global exporter of frozen potato products. So let's hear about growing potatoes in Belgium.
Growing potatoes is a serious business in Belgium, making a significant contribution to the country's economy. But more than just growing potatoes, Belgium is home to the largest potato processing industry in the world. Pommes frites, or more appropriately Belgian fries, are at the heart of a key industrial sector which exports more frozen potato products than any other country. Potatoes are a high-value crop, but prone to pests and damage, and the food processing factories demand high-quality and good-sized potatoes. Belgapom, the trade association charged with promoting Belgian potatoes around the world, has looked to Copernicus to deliver improved production. Vito, a Belgian research company, uses data from Sentinel-2 to provide the Watch It Grow service, which identifies damage due to pests and when to irrigate and add fertilizer. Farmers use the Watch It Grow service to optimize their use of water and chemicals, to harvest at the right time, and to grow the potatoes that best meet the needs of the potato processing industry. The industry receives higher quantities of high-quality potatoes and better information on when which crops will be delivered, so improving their production planning. Overall, the Belgian economy enjoys higher production with more resilience against the effects of weather and climate change. The economic benefits are estimated between 1.8 and 2.6 million euros each year. But more importantly, as a common information platform, it enables knowledge sharing between the different stakeholders, so helping to improve communication between actors and develop shared objectives between the farmers, processing industry, and policymakers at federal, regional, and local levels.
So our guests for this, Stefan Krekels from Vito and Christophe Merlin from Belgapom. Unfortunately, Christophe couldn't be with us today, or can't be with us today, though Stefan is on the call. So we sat down yesterday and had a chat ourselves, and here's the results of that chat. Well, we should have results of the chat.
Geoff, we seem to have a problem with the results of the chat.
You're not able to put it up?
No.
Okay, so Stefan, perhaps I can call you onto the stage in that case. Hi, good to see you.
Hi, Jeff.
So sorry that Christoph can't be here. We'll cover some of the points. Maybe just start off telling us a little bit about Watch It Grow and Vito and your role in all this.
Okay, so I guess I have to fill in the blanks of Christoph.
You have to fill in the blanks for Christoph, yeah.
So for our recording. So let me quickly introduce the players. So Belgapom is the organization that unites all the processing industry and the traders. And so it's companies like Agristo that are doing the fine art of fries making. And Vito is a research institute since a long time active in the domain of remote sensing. And so we jointly started up Watch It Grow, trying to identify the added value of Copernicus data in the particular case of the potato industry in Belgium. In its origin, Watch It Grow was a research project looking into yield prediction on certain types of crops, but it quickly became clear that it turned more into a digital platform where a lot of stuff can be shared and used, and remote sensing data would be just one of the data sets available.
I'll come back to that point in a minute, because it was one that Christoph made strongly yesterday and came up also in the panel we just had. But maybe before going to that, you could just, on behalf of Christoph, explain why potatoes are so important in Belgium.
Well, there are a couple of numbers and then there are a couple of other reasons. So just to give you an idea, the potato industry in Belgium, the potato processing industry in Belgium represents roughly 2 billion euros, which is a significant number. In quantities, we produce roughly 5 million tons of frozen potato products as an export product. So this means that with this crop, there is an awful lot of people being involved. There's quite some economy active. And so this means that, yes, it is a significant part of our economical fabric in Belgium.
So it's the fact that not only is Belgium growing a lot of potatoes, but also there is a very strong processing industry, which is exporting around the world, and as you say, a 2 billion
Exactly.
sector in the country. Yeah.
As Christoph said it, we kind of adopted the potato because we all know it doesn't come from Belgium, but it seems that the soil that we have in our part of the world, and also our neighboring countries like Holland and parts of Germany and France, of course, but that the soil is quite welcoming potatoes and giving us a quite significant yield. To give you an idea, I think we are above 45 tons per acre in our environment, where in other parts of the world people can only reach 10 or 15 tons per acre. So yes, we have fertile ground for potatoes. Not only our mindset, but also the ground itself.
Not only our stomachs. Now, let me come on, because again, Christoph voluntarily made this key point yesterday. As you say, Watch It Grow has become a data sharing platform. And one of the benefits that we looked at and discussed was the sharing of data between the farmers and the processing industry, which on the one hand is evident because it's in everybody's interest to maximize the production and maximize the returns, but at the same time is extremely difficult because everybody claims ownership of the data and wants to maximize their own advantage. Can you perhaps you can comment on that?
Well, one of the reasons why we kept on investing on the platform is that we want to use that data platform as a kind of trust enabler. It's clear, as it is a big business, that there are a lot of money is at stake, and so that well, as in any good commercial relationship, I would suppose people keep an eye on their pockets and then see where the money is going. But we realized, we being the potato sector in Belgium, and I hope I can count myself as being part of that, by the way.
I think so,
But
yeah.
people realized that it will be by working together that we can achieve and maintain the same position worldwide as we are now. It doesn't make much sense that our local farmers would go competition or would go very hard on the processing industry, because we both need each other to keep that same number one position that we are now. And so this data platform and being able to share the data and providing the data at the same time to everybody, that we see as one of the things that can be done in order to establish some trust between the different players in the value chain and really move ahead as a sector.
And as a way of sort of balancing some of the power, because there's a power imbalance there, isn't there? Which is, I guess, at the heart of the problem. The platform was also shared with the administrators, I believe. So obviously Belgium has a very complex political landscape, but I think Watch It Grow also plays a role there.
Yeah. I mean, like in any setup, if you're talking about agricultural land, there is agricultural policy, and also there the connections with the organizations that are handling those aspects of the situation are kept in the loop, and data is exchanged, and there where, of course, because of privacy reasons, we cannot see everything everywhere, but there where possibly and allowed, those systems are connected together and information is exchanged.
Yeah. So, I mean, as well as saving on inputs for the farmers, they're also able to leverage, to a certain extent, the value of their crops. The factories are able to plan their operations more efficiently because they know when particular crops are going to arrive, and there is this overall platform. It's almost a strategic benefit, but we talk about it as being sort of a shared common picture, common operating picture that arises out of the Watch It Grow service. We haven't said anything about the role of Copernicus in that. Maybe we should just touch on that. We're just about coming to the end of our time, but maybe you could say something about Copernicus.
Yeah, so Copernicus, there we use Sentinel-2 and Sentinel-1 data. Sentinel-2 because of the obvious reasons. I do believe that the audience of this workshop knows the obvious reasons, right? But we, as you know, Belgium is a nice little country, but we have a lot of rain too. And with the cloud situation, we had to find ways to get around that. And so that's where we combined Sentinel-1 data points in complement of Sentinel-2 data points to bridge in between two optical observations. This gives us the guarantee that we have one measuring point every week, independent of the cloud situation, and that is really key, especially in the beginning of the growth season. That's really key in making a good or making a sound estimation on yields and how the crop basically is behaving. So yeah, Sentinel-1 and 2 are quite instrumental in the success of the platform, but they are also complemented by meteo data, soil data, management practice data, and of course it's one of the data sets that we use.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of discussion about meteorological data as well, because that's a key part of Field Sense's approach, Field Sense in Denmark. Okay, I mean, I think that puts the picture. Is there anything else you would like to say about the use of Sentinel and Sentinel in the future? That we can. Anything you want to put on the table now?
What we also notice is that apart from trying to help quality of the crop itself and optimize processes here and there, focusing on the economical aspect of the matter, we also notice that in context of a sustainability balance that the players of the potato value chain want to make, that remote sensing data can help them in making or trying to make that balance. because it's just not good enough to, to sell the best fries in the world. You also have to prove that you do this in an environmental and social responsible manner. And there, the overarching view that Copernicus can give, and the transparency on how you are doing stuff, that also enables organizations in their own search of this sustainability balance.
Yeah. There's a number of issues there I think it'd be interesting to come back to tomorrow. If you're able to join us tomorrow, it would be great, but I know we've already taken some of your time. We have so for the benefits of everybody, a reminder that tomorrow afternoon we have an open discussion session where we will be looking at different questions that are coming up throughout the workshop and trying to address them further. There is a question and answer session at around 5 o'clock, 5:15 today. Please put any questions in the chat. I don't know, Stefan, if you will stay with us, but if not, we will pass the questions on later. And but please, if anyone's got questions, great. Please pop them into the chat, and we'll come to them in due course. So thanks, Stefan, for being with us. I'm sorry about the recording. It's a shame because it worked very well yesterday. So we'll move on, and we take a slight change of direction now. I mentioned the short cases that we've done. So I now want to introduce, as I did in the whole team picture, Christopher Oligschläger, who works for ERSC and is working on the study, who is going to take us through some of the results of the short cases. But as in the characteristics of the rest of the workshop, I will carry on with the narrative and just take you through. So, when the Romans invaded the British Isles, we're coming back to the Roman times now. The Romans invaded British Isles in 55 BC, but they never regained full control of the Celts, who were the previous inhabitants, in what has now become Scotland and Wales. The Emperor Hadrian constructed a wall between England and Scotland to keep the marauding Scottish tribes out of England, but eventually Scotland unified under a single king before being conquered by the English. In 1309, the Scots, led by Robert the Bruce, fought the English in the Battle of Bannockburn and so regained their independence. This is recognised as the first official declaration of independence that took place. The Battle of Bannockburn was fought on the peaty moors of southern Scotland. Over the years, these moors have been heavily exploited for their peat, and much of the peat is now in bad condition. As a result, water collected off the moors to serve households is contaminated and requires expensive treatment. Sentinel data is now helping the water companies to manage the peat resource better. Chris, tell us more.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Good afternoon, everybody. Just to highlight again, so until now we were listening to the full cases, which really did a very detailed, comprehensive analysis with a certain focus on the economic analysis. Now we're looking at the 4 short cases in which we also spoke with the service provider as well as user organizations, but we digested the information in a more storytelling way in a 6-pager. And on the next slide, we can see that indeed 80% of the UK peatland is in a really poor condition. And this is a problem that is really faced by water companies because they have to localize the areas of this degraded peat. And this problem was picked up by Resatec, a UK-based company. It's using Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data to create maps that show exactly the extent and depth of the degraded peat across the whole moorlands. And the water utilities had quite an interest in this application are the primary users because they need to understand where is the degraded peat, and knowing this helps them, of course, improve the quality of the peat, so reducing the peat pollution and in turn saving costs on water purification. And on the next slide, you can see the associated benefits with this application. Of course, they are of a financial nature because the water companies save costs through the use of less chemicals, but they also range from climate benefits because well-managed peat saves more carbon, to environmental benefits because well-managed peats can offer better habitats to many species of flora and fauna. And they also have this application has really benefits to the water availability because well-managed peatlands can reduce the risk of droughts during the summers and also the risk of floods during heavy rains. We have also had the pleasure to receive a statement from Philip Bresco, who is working for Resatec, and we'll listen now to how they are using the Sentinel data.
Hi, my name is Philip Briscoe from Resatec. Resatec's a geospatial analytics business based in the UK, and we provide our customers with innovative insights to enable them to manage their natural assets and critical infrastructure remotely at scale and cost effectively. One such asset is peatland, and understanding its relationship to water quality. Peat is critical for natural water collection, water retention and carbon storage. Much of the peatland in the UK is in fairly poor condition, where it's being drained or damaged by over-extraction, for example, for livestock grazing. As peat soils dry out, the peat is damaged and the carbon stored in it leaches into watercourses, turning streams and rivers brown. The cost of removal of peat coloration from water for domestic use is currently borne by water companies and ultimately consumers. The problem faced by the water companies is to distinguish between peatland in good condition and that which is not, to inform and prioritise restoration activity. This is where the satellite data becomes useful. So Resatec uses Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data to derive detailed maps showing the extent and condition of the peat across moorlands. Using our cutting-edge Earth observation techniques and modelling, powerful information can be extracted from the data without having to visit and survey the area, therefore saving time and effort. Interactive data visualization is enabled within an online platform, and this includes a comprehensive set of tools such as a peatland integrity index and water quality risk indices, which can be interrogated and used by the water companies to understand and more effectively manage their organic rich catchments. Resatec has provided peat maps for many water utilities, including South West Water and Scottish Water. For example, in Scotland, over 10,000 square kilometres of catchments were analysed, and part of that analysis was to identify where there were anthropogenic features such as peat cuttings or upland vegetation management. The benefits are not just financial, but key to carbon storage, not just in the UK, but applicable around the world. Resatec also analyses Sentinel data to provide valuable tools in other sectors, including dams, forests, pipeline networks, and agriculture. Thank you.
So it's me again. Scotland, of course, is also well known as being the home of whiskey and of golf. The Dutch dispute the claim to be the origin of golf, but in 1457 the first documented mention of golf as a game appeared in a Scottish Act of Parliament. The club, the Royal and Ancient at St Andrews, was founded in 1754 and is the oldest golf club in the world. From Scotland, the game spread to other parts of the world, and the oldest club in continental Europe is at Pau in the French Pyrenees. Golf courses are now also using satellites to help with course management, as Chris will now explain.
Next slide, please. Of course, golf courses are also in Italy, and we all know that water scarcity is an important issue in Italy because many of its regions are in extremely high water stressed areas of the country, and in this regard, environmental protection and the efficient use of water is of course a hot topic also among the sports clubs and associations. And then within the sports sector, golf courses are actually major water consumers. So Centrale Valutativa, a Rome-based company, picked up this problem, and they are drawing on Sentinel-2 data and developed a decision support application called TETIS to monitor the health status of the turf and the grasslands on the golf courses. And this application is used by greenkeepers all over Italy to do their job better, cheaper, and in a time-efficient manner, because it shows them where the turf needs the care of the greenkeeper and the greenkeeper's attention. And on the next slide, you can see that all the benefits that are associated with this use case, because there's of course a financial dimension to it, because the application helps the greenkeepers drive down the costs of energy and water. It also makes their processes much more efficient and reduces the general consumption within an already water-stressed environment. It helps the greenkeeper manage his time more efficiently, because he only needs to go where his care is needed the most over the golf course. And another one not to forget is the sportive benefit, because it helps the greenkeeper keep the optimal conditions for golf players. And we also received a really nice statement from Matteo De Sanctis, he's the managing partner from Centrale Valutativa, and we'll listen to it now.
Hi, I'm Matteo De Sanctis, co-founder and managing partner of Centrale Valutativa. We are an Italian startup offering precision farming services based on satellite imagery.
Our app, TETIS, is used by farmers, obviously, but also by insurance companies, public bodies, and golf clubs and technicians. With this regard, TETIS supports the golf course greenkeeper in his day-to-day decision-making and ensures efficient and sustainable grass management. Maps and graphs are processed daily and allow the greenkeeper to monitor the health of the turf and its water requirements. The service is based on optical data from the ESA Sentinel-2 satellite and others, which are integrated with weather data and processed with advanced agronomic models. An intuitive application for PCs, smartphones and tablets provides maps and graphs to be used in a flexible and autonomous way in the office or on the field. A prestigious golf club in northern Rome hosted the Italian Open 2 years ago. Francesco Saverio Modestini is an expert Italian greenkeeper and looks after the grass of the course with love.
Francesco has been using TETIS with enthusiasm for almost 5 years.
TETIS maps give me an immediate overview of the condition of the turf. I can act rapidly and only where necessary, saving time and labor. TETIS helps me to better control the irrigation on the field according to its actual water needs, and so to save water and energy. With TETIS, the golf course management is definitely more modern and sustainable.
Yeah, okay, Geese. Geese, in the north of the Netherlands, in Friesland, in the winter months, wild geese invade farmers' grasslands, and because the geese are a protected species, the farmers are not able to chase them off. As cropping gets better, the geese are staying longer into the spring and consequently causing greater losses. So what happens, Chris?
Yeah, next slide, please, Martin. As you said, the geese have discovered the Netherlands really as a winter paradise for breeding, and this is mainly thanks to an abundance of food on the fields. However, this has resulted in extreme field damages to the Dutch farmers. And against this background, the government 2 decades ago set up the Fauna Fund to compensate farmers for their losses on the fields. And in 2015, this resulted in compensation payments of around 70 million euros and several thousand appraisals per year. So this is a heavy burden on the part of the authorities. And the province of Friesland wanted to find a more innovative solution to do these appraisals, and they worked together with Alien X, which used Sentinel-2 data to develop a tool for automatic geese damage detection. And this tool allows for also a global overview over the farmers' fields and for remote appraisals. Of course, these automated appraisals saved the province a lot of time and cost for the inspectors, and the automation also led to faster payments from the Fauna Fund, and it also gave the farmers a hint basically where to put in place certain mitigation measures to avoid future damages and loss. And this application also resulted in a lot of benefits, which you can see on the next slide. Not only has it a financial dimension, because faster payments are handed out to the farmers, and because of the mitigation measures, there are less damages now on the fields. But also the authorities work much more efficiently now. They only need to visit the fields in cases of uncertainty. There have also been fraudulent claims in the past, and which of course undermines the fair system of compensation. So there is certainly a societal benefit as well. It also provides the farmers with a certain level of awareness of what is happening on the fields between the month of September and April. And we can switch over to the next short case.
So we now go to Portugal, and as the Scots and the Dutch were playing golf in Northern Europe, in the south, Portugal was going through a tumultuous period. During the 15th and 16th centuries, Portugal became a leading European power that ranked with England, France, Spain and the Netherlands in terms of economic, political and cultural influence. Though not dominant in European affairs, Portugal had an extensive colonial trading empire. But a succession crisis in 1580 led to an Iberian union under the Spanish crown. Seeing the country's interests being wasted, in 1640 John IV led an uprising which led to the end of the Iberian Treaty and the restoration of Portugal as an independent country. Portugal had been losing a lot of people who were emigrating to Brazil, and was further stricken in 1755 when Lisbon was razed by a severe earthquake. Further weakened, Portugal was torn between the other European powers. Nevertheless, Portugal survived, even holding on to some of its colonies, leading to the First Republic and indeed to modern-day Portugal. So Portugal has looked at how Sentinel data is helping the paper industry manage its source material timber. Chris.
Yeah, in fact, the pulp and paper industry is really of high importance to the Portuguese economy. It directly manages 200,000 hectares of forests and tree plantations all over the country. And as these plantations are dispersed all over the country, it is quite expensive and also time-consuming to monitor them and inspect them. Furthermore, there are wildfires and government regulations that are driving these pulp and paper companies to use innovative forest management solutions. And within this context, Tesselo, which is a Lisbon-based startup, developed an application based on Sentinel-2 data, augmented by AI technologies, to monitor the life cycle of tree plantations and various features such as tree age or timber volume. And this, in turn, this application is used by the forest managers and SELPA, the Pulp and Paper Industry Association, to check on the tree health of their plantations all over the country remotely. They can prioritize their work more efficiently and understand more effectively the state of the tree plantations countrywide, as well as overall market dynamics. And the associated benefits that you can see on the next slide are also quite manifold. There are certainly economic gains. There are cost savings because field inspections could be reduced by at least 25%. There are increased revenues because better tree care and maintenance is happening on the part of the forest managers. There are environmental benefits because forest managers and companies are able to use less fertilizer and pesticides for the same output. And this was very interesting. The Sentinel data are the direct reason why this company was founded. And last but not least, the development of this application led to a collaboration with local students around the use of Earth observation technologies. And we had an interview with the Chief Sustainability Officer, Marine Utgeroyo from Tesla, which we will be listening to now.
So great to have you here, Marine, from Tesla. Maybe you can introduce yourself. Firstly, say who you are and what your company does.
Sure. So I'm Marine Utgeroyo. I'm one of the co-founders and chief strategy officer at Tesla. We are a Portuguese startup, and we created the company 4 years ago. So what we do is basically vegetation intelligence. It means that we map and analyze vegetation all around the planet using open data, satellite imagery mainly from the Copernicus program, that we analyze with our proprietary AI models.
Okay, and how does the Sentinel data help you deliver a service to SELPA and their forest managers?
Well, actually the Sentinel was really at the root of the creation of Tesla. We really thought, okay, that's the first time we have such a tool at our disposal, really dedicated to analyze plants and able to scale at any geographical distance. So we decided to start with this technology and think about possible applications to solve environmental issues. So it's really at the basis of our business model. We are confident that open imagery has the necessary resolution to deliver, for example, forest inventories in near real time, automated every year. And what we do is we add layers of information that match what our customers need to know. So for example, in the case of SELPA, so SELPA is the Portuguese Association of Pulp and Paper Producers. They have been our first client. And we do a tree species classification, so they know exactly accurately how their stock are changing over time. Because their forest plantations are distributed all over the country and actually belong to several stakeholders, several owners, it's complicated for them to aggregate information. So we do that for them. And on top of tree species classification, we have a series of features. For example, tree growth, tree volume, pest attack detection, etc.
Mm-hmm. And as a result of your service, can you name any other benefits that result to your customers?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first benefit, of course, is to help optimize forest operations because we give a near real-time, exhaustive overview of the plantation. Forest managers are able to adjust their operations and save time save money, send less people to the field, but send them only when and where it's necessary. For example, in the case of pest attack, if we are able to detect anomalies in growth, in tree growth, it means that they don't have to check all the time, but they can rely on our alerts to adjust dispatch of their teams.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris,
Thank you,
for taking us through those. The short cases are equally important and deliver a lot of the insights that we can make use of. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip over the narrative. So we now move to Greenland and looking at, in fact, two cases looking at navigation through ice. So first of all, let's look at the animation for Greenland.
The largest island in the world, Greenland is a cold and remote place, depending on ships to transport all goods in and out. Everything in Greenland is dependent on ice. Ice prevents transport over land, while sea ice and icebergs necessitate enhanced caution and pose a constant threat when shipping between the remote villages and with Europe. Given that almost all transport happens at sea, navigators need the latest information about the location of the ice in order to navigate safely. Using Sentinel-1 and other satellite data, the Danish Meteorological Institute's ice service provides all stakeholders and the Greenland public with up-to-date ice charts and ice maps. The Royal Arctic Line is Greenland's bridge to the rest of the world. Ships from RAL, which has an exclusive concession for sea transportation of cargo to and from Greenland, use the maps to find the best routes through the offshore ice. Other sectors, depending on shipping such as local fisheries and oil transport, save time and fuel and operate more safely. More reliable shipping means local businesses operate more efficiently and safely, and local citizens are able to enjoy a better quality of life. The economic benefit to the Greenland economy is significant at 8 to 12 million euros each year, but more important is the contribution made to local living conditions that underpins the strategic value of Greenland.
Now, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the key person from the Greenland case is on maternity leave. So in fact, we have no one to talk. So I will just explain a little bit more about Greenland, and then I want to contrast it with the next case where we go to look at the Baltic. So if I can have the next slide, please. In Greenland, it's essentially, as the video said, it's the biggest island in the world, and it's the settlements are almost like islands within the country. Navigation through the ice is extremely important. It's essential to keep the communities, the settlements, going. So if I can take the next slide. Here we see the value chain. We came across this earlier, but this is in a little bit more detail. So here we have the Royal Arctic Line, which takes ice maps, daily ice maps coming from the Danish Meteorological Institute to understand the conditions through which they're navigating. This enables them to plan their routes and the way in which they will reach and leave each settlement. There are other sectors, most notably fisheries and shipping, which also rely on the ice maps, as well as the local population, transportation of oil around the settlements. So this means that businesses and the local economy can operate, certainly more efficiently, but even in some cases even operate at all, and can safely stimulate economic growth. And the people living there are able to be more assured of the delivery of materials and the taking away of goods that they've produced for sale elsewhere. Next slide, please. Just important to note at the end that Greenland has a geostrategic value, which we saw recently with rumors that Donald Trump was offering to buy it. His offer was rejected, but this has been a subject for discussion for many years now, and the US still has an important Air Force base in Greenland. So the Royal Arctic Line has a monopoly on shipping between Greenland and Denmark, which is the only connection, and provides the bridge to the rest of the world. The coastal settlements are serviced by ship or by helicopters, RAL providing the shipping services. So where communities are hunting or fishing, often over the ice, they're not very keen that that ice is then broken by icebreakers. So icebreakers are not welcome in Greenland, and indeed it's hardened ships that sail through the ice, which obviously has an influence, a bearing on where they can sail. So the ice maps help very much in this facet. So take the next slide, please. So in Greenland, we have RAL providing a bridge to the rest of the world. We've got the isolated settlements served by them. We've got the sailing through broken ice and thin sea ice and with ships rather than icebreakers. And communities are hunting over the ice, so they don't want the icebreakers sort of creating seaways. In Baltic, the situation is very different. There are larger towns and industry which need to operate and to be served all the year round. So they're sailing through much thicker winter ice in the Baltic. So here, icebreakers are used to lead the ships which are carrying the freight. And the seaways are maintained to ease the passage and serve local industry all year round. And then we'll welcome Jarkko Toivola and Patrick Eriksson to have a discussion about it. Navigating through the winter sea ice has an outstanding importance for Finland and Sweden, and particularly their citizens living around the Gulf of Bothnia. Finland is like an island. Shipping provides the primary means of transport for keeping towns supplied and for factories and timber yards to ship their products. Finland is largely icebound during the winter months, and icebreakers keep sea lanes open to enable the ships to arrive at ports in a timely fashion. In the past, helicopters carried on the icebreakers used to be flown around the ships to find the best way to travel through the ice, but they could only fly during the day, in good weather, and with a limited range. In 2003, the Ministry of Transport in Finland and in Sweden decided to remove the helicopters. Now, FMI, the Finnish Meteorological Institute, provides daily ice maps and SAR images directly to the captains on board the icebreakers, who are able to have a better synoptic view of the ice covering the whole of the Gulf. Icebreakers guiding the ships plan their routes with better knowledge of the changing ice conditions, so finding the best, safest and fastest routes through the ice, avoiding delays and longer travel times. Ships transporting goods save time and fuel and arrive in the ports more punctually. Factories and the local citizens enjoy better transport connections, so assuring the local economy. The economic benefits are quite high, at between 24 million and 116 million euro per annum. But more significantly, the use of the Sentinel data helps the icebreakers to keep the ports open all the year round and the local economy to work more effectively, so making a better quality of life for people living there. So now let me welcome Jarkko and Patrick onto the stage and ask them first. Great backdrop, Jarkko. Really good. So just tell me a little bit about Jarkko. You're now working for the ministry. Patrick for FMI. Tell us a little bit about the roles, respective roles in this story.
Actually, I'm working for the agency in charge of arranging wind navigation, which is, by the way, Finnish Transport and Infrastructure Agency. But anyhow, our role is to arrange ice-breaking services, set ice restriction based on the ice conditions. You can't allow weaker vessels to operate in the conditions. Actually, the one in my background is something which shouldn't really happen. And my background, on the other hand, is a master mariner, yeah, I actually used to sail in the 80s in the Greenland traffic, so I pretty well know also what it was before we had, or the guys nowadays have, the radar images of the ice in the region. And not only just to prevent the locals' ice to be broken for their hunting and other things, but also to prevent at that time icebergs and flows and bergibits and it was pretty dangerous and difficult at those times. I'm sure that even in Greenland, the situation is much better. But for us, this is, as your nice video showed, this is critical.
So, Patrick, what's the role of FMI in this?
Yeah, at FMI, our primary role is the downloading, the processing, and the delivery of all the satellite imagery to serve Jarkko's work, all the field he is dealing with, and maybe on a daily scale, maybe the main users are the icebreakers out at sea. They benefit from that near real-time delivery of the images from day to day.
So, Jarkko, the images that are used on the icebreakers, how are they helping?
Well, the primary use on the icebreakers is to, when we are talking about sea ice, which is very dynamic, it moves, it ridges, it has pressure areas, but also open leads. So to lead the traffic to most efficient and safe routes, which do change more or less daily, especially when you have windy and stormy conditions. And that's then to prevent situation that vessel behind or in my background is not in the right place. So to prevent something like that, I think that's the primary use for the icebreakers. And we definitely need them eagerly every day, hopefully more often, but anything we get is better than having the helicopters which don't fly when you most need them.
So as I recall, there is synthetic aperture radar imagery directly from Sentinel-1 is pre-processed and sent directly to the icebreakers, and it's the icebreakers captains that use that. Is that correct?
They use it. We use it for assessing the situation and development of the ice situation, for setting ice restrictions. But as said, it is directly, as soon as possible, delivered to them for making operational decisions on how to, all in all, route the traffic, because there's only few icebreakers in Finland and Sweden, but there is actually thousands of ships every year assisted, and to route the traffic safely and most efficiently, we need the ice information, and I said synthetic radar images are pretty much the only thing that you, during dark and very typically cloudy season, can get the information of ice.
and having a synoptic view of the whole of the Gulf of Bothnia helps, I think.
It's every year in Gulf of Bothnia, but actually every normal year, every Finnish port freezes, and the same issue is actually in the Bay of Finland, and even in 2010-11 we have ice in the northern Baltic, central Baltic area. So it's not only for the Bay of Bothnia, but it's for the region really, and for that we cooperate with the neighboring countries, and especially with Sweden, where we're operating a common fleet of icebreakers. We actually guide the whole traffic as a one big picture, and that is really based on the radar images, satellite radar images.
So the ships that are looking to sail into the ports, under certain conditions, they're waiting for the icebreakers to come and guide them, and they follow the icebreakers through the ice and guided to the ports. That could be quite a risky process, couldn't it?
It certainly can, especially with the merchant vessels getting weaker and weaker due to the emission regulations. So this is actually, although the seasons maybe are getting shorter, but the ice is moving more. So when you get stuck with a merchant vessel in ice, like in the picture behind me, and then you will be just drifting with the ice field. You can't move by yourself. And then again, on the other hand, as there is so few icebreakers, we can't put an icebreaker actually ahead of every vessel, but we have to be assured that the routings we give them so that they proceed as long as they can by themselves, that's a safe routing, and we then maybe ask them to stop somewhere for waiting the icebreaker, or allow them to go forward depending on the situation, but it's all based on the ice situation.
Okay, and does this also have an environmental benefit?
Well, sure, you'd have. That's one of the big issues, especially nowadays, even more than before. But if you try to just, even the easier conditions than in the picture, for instance, try to manage to go yourself, and the easy ice would be, say, 5 to 10 miles off from where you are, the routing. You would be just spending huge amounts of fuel, but not getting anywhere. But you can actually see the ice. It's not that sunny and clear most of the time, but it's cloudy and it's dark. So finding the right route, which will save fuel, which will make the system more efficient, is vital, even from that, or nowadays maybe mostly from that perspective.
So saving fuel is saving money, and it's also saving pollution going into the Baltic environment.
Granting safety.
And safety.
I think that's actually the very first target we set, assuring the safety, but then also emissions, cost efficiency, keeping the schedules. All that is really based on our information of the ice conditions and application and managing the sparse resources of icebreakers compared to the huge number of assisted vessels.
Now, presumably, for at least some of the ports and towns, life would be quite different without the icebreakers going into to help them.
Well, if you think that nowadays every hour really counts in shipping, or even shorter periods. When I started to navigate also in these waters, and as a mate, it was early 80s, and we could, even the best vessels could get stuck for days because you didn't know where you were going. The information was so sparse that you got stuck. Well, at that time, maybe that wasn't that big harm, but with the modern just-in-time world, where every penny counts and efficiency is everything, so it wouldn't work like this if we don't have the information you can provide us. Patrick helps us with the other information. It's a holistic picture of the development of the ice. But I think these images are the vital, because they are the best on time, online, view on what the whole ice field is. You can see what is around you, but where you should go, because the shortest route more or less never is the fastest or most efficient route in ice conditions.
Yeah. So Patrick, how then does Sentinel data, we hear about the radar images, how does it help, and how do you assure sort of timely delivery, because time is important here, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the timeliness is definitely one key issue for the ice breaking, and we quite radically realized that last winter, when there was abruptions in the satellite processing from the source of the satellite companies, and we have had days of missing images, and the timeliness there was shown very clearly. And today we are able to deliver the images up to the bridges of the icebreakers as in less than 3 hours, quite often even in an hour or less. And we have clearly seen that this is crucial. Still, the image that the users get are a snapshot of an older situation. Yeah. So depending on the ice situation, the development of the ice field, a quite fresh image might be even too old already.
Yeah.
But yeah, very essential in all that respect. I might mention that all these images are used also in our office to create the ice maps you mentioned about the Greenland waters. And those are delivered then to the whole field of shipping. You can count in all the activities around ports, logistics, agents, and so on, that can benefit from the imagery as a developed product in the ice map, ice chart, to then also collect the benefit of that data as a kind of a byproduct. Nowadays, in the previous years, the ice map was actually the prime product for all the actors, but that has changed now.
I guess it's also a question of who's concerned. I'd love to carry on. We're already running late. Jarkko, we'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed for your time this evening, and it's fascinating talking with you guys. But I have to close it down now. Thanks again.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks for having us. Bye.
So now we have another change of direction. I've mentioned the cross-cutting studies. One of those has looked into the sort of research and scientific benefits, or the academic benefits of Sentinel data. Dimitri Papadakis will now take the floor and give a short presentation providing an overview of this activity, this work. Dimitri, over to you.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jeff, for that introduction. And indeed, what we heard earlier that during the startups panel, that we conducted a cross-cutting study on startups and a survey on the startup ecosystem. And another type of cross-cutting study was also carried out to examine the scientific as opposed to the entrepreneurial impacts of Sentinel data. And all of these cross-cutting studies, by the way, I didn't mention this before, support the cases by looking at parallel issues that are not linked directly to a specific user or a specific application area. And what I'd like to do now is just spend a very few moments going through some of the preliminary results from our study, which is soon to be published on the same site that the other one will be published. I provided the link here. So now, what is the motivation here? Well, the idea was we want to understand whether the availability of free and open data from the Sentinels has stimulated scientific and technological research, and to try and understand what the impact of that data has been on the scientific and academic community. And scientific publications are a good indicator of that type of impact. So we conducted this study which sought to try and understand how Sentinel data is being exploited in various ways in the scientific and academic communities using this bibliometric approach, which effectively means counting numbers of publications. But we went a little bit further than that. So I'll talk you through how we got to our results. Sorry, it's the wrong way. So we used a very comprehensive database, which some of you will know of, called Scopus. It is a very large data set containing publications in the order of millions, so 70 million records. That's the figure that they quote. And what we did is we searched this database, extracting those publications which mentioned sentinels in the title, abstract, and keywords, and also used other terms to filter out publications that would be relevant, for example, using the names of specific instruments that are flying on board the sentinels, like Tropomi and MSI. Then, and this is the part that differs a little bit from some of the similar studies that have been carried out in this area, we tried to dig a bit deeper than just saying what are the volume of the publications, and we divided them into two main groups. One group is referred to as upstream and EO, and this group comes from the Earth observation community, or is related to issues that are upstream, so satellites, sensors, launches, manufacture, operation, and all of these kinds of things. Components and related technologies all fall into this category. And we differentiated those from the thematic and downstream category, which is really where applications are being developed in a specific thematic area, in agriculture, in environment, in energy. And one can easily see that a journal like Remote Sensing and a conference like IGARS differs fundamentally from a journal like the Science of the Total Environment and the International Conference on Agrogeomatics, for example. So we tried to filter out those areas where the publications were really having an impact on a downstream user community. We also pulled together information about quality, publication impact, using two different quality indicators. And so now I'm going to walk you through some of our results. Firstly, just looking at the overall numbers. We separated journals from conferences because they have a different publication timeline and different kind of an aim. Also, the maturity of the content is not the same, so you expect to find much more advanced ideas in journal publications rather than presented at conferences. They're sometimes more preliminary results. So separating the two makes sense. And what you see before you is a timeline stretching from 2008 all the way up to the end of last year, showing how journal and conference publications have evolved. And already this diagram shows us some interesting results, because one can see that there are a lot less conferences. The conferences have a sort of a different character, a different rate of publication. They have their little peaks and troughs. Those peaks, by the way, are As Are Living Planets, in case you're wondering, mostly contributed by that conference. Whereas the journals are growing strongly each and every year. And this graph is, by the way, not cumulative, it's every year's results. So we see the journals growing, and we see also that there's been a 51% increase since 2019 in overall publications. So there's generating interest on this subject. Every year we are seeing more and more interest. And it's also nice to see that the correlation with the Sentinel launch dates. But there'll be more specifics on that as we move forward. So let me talk you now through this idea of impact on science. So we extracted just those publications which are focused on the thematic areas, and we consider that these are the ones that are making the impact on the earth science. And we know that the audiences of the journals that I mentioned, Total Science of the Environment, don't necessarily work with EO data. And these are the genuine users.
So we are seeing that this graph shows you the difference between the EON upstream and the thematic. And as you might expect, EON upstream has the edge, and certainly had the edge very much in the beginning. But as we moved through 2016, 2017, we started to see that trend of thematic publications rising. And it's almost tripled since 2018. We're seeing constant updates every year and higher increases every year. And today, the thematic publications make up 28% overall of the 8,100, which is the total number of publications. What's necessary to mention here, which is not shown, but it's very interesting, is that we have a very long tail in the distribution of the thematic publications. There's a long tail in the EO and upstream as well. But what makes up that long tail are single publications in journals that had perhaps never seen publications like this one before. And it is the detail where these things really get interesting. Of course, we haven't got time for that now, but I recommend that you seek out the report if you're interested in more. Okay, just a quick word on the geographic origin of the publications. And here you have a map of all of the countries that contributed to the publications in the dataset. And what we've done is, there are some other graphs where we show the difference between European and rest of world publications. And it's interesting that since 2018, the publications outside Europe actually overtook the European ones. And of course, you can see China here producing the majority of the publications overall, having reached that place in just the last 2 years. We've got graphs that show the specifics for each Sentinel as well in the full report. This is the total data set. Next, I am going to talk a little bit about the Sentinel specific results. And here on the graph, you can see the thematic publications by individual Sentinel. Sentinel-1 is the area, and the others are represented by the lines. Sentinel-1 was, of course, launched first, and so had the leading position for a good while. But very interestingly, again, in 2018, the number of publications on Sentinel-2 overtook those on Sentinel-1, and it has remained in first place, if you like, in leading publication figures. And well, we have 166 thematic publication sources in 2020 releasing their first publication, and this is the long tail that I mentioned before, where it was the first time that we had seen this publication cropping up in our data set. And it's very interesting how year on year, more and more publications show their first time appearing in our lists. And again, we have an assessment of the quality. I haven't got time to discuss all that now, but we do see that as time passes, the quality and the reputation of these journals is increasing, and there's a very significant contribution made in the thematic publications of high quality. And now just looking at a couple of the Sentinels. I haven't got time for all of them. I'm going to look at Sentinel-1 and 2 and just talk you through some of the specific results that we've got there. So as I said, Sentinel-1, having had a slightly longer history, has more publications overall. That's 3,500, almost 3,600 publications in total between 2008 and 2020. And well, I won't talk you through all of the numbers, but it's perhaps interesting just to point out that one can take the average publications per mission year and compare that to any other satellite, not just the Sentinels, but we are comparing Sentinel to Sentinel, which takes an average over the year of the lifetime of the satellite. So yeah, we're averaging almost 600 publications per operational life year, and 55% of those publications overall originate outside Europe. This is very interesting also to look behind the summary and into the details if you have a special interest in Sentinel-1. And for Sentinel-2, so likewise, similarly, in fact, interestingly, Sentinel-2's publications per year are now higher than Sentinel-1, making a very similar contribution, almost 500 papers to applied science, and 54% of the publications are originating outside Europe. So I think, without wishing to go on much longer, although clearly if you have questions, you can feel free to put them forward, I will just conclude saying that the full report contains these graphs and a lot more analysis behind it. Also for the rest of the Sentinels, also including comparisons with other satellites. And just to show you that the headlines are, I mean, we're seeing incredible increases in the publication volume, especially since 2018. And tripling of the publications as far as the thematic publications are concerned, contributing to Earth science. And of course, this realization that the international community has become very much galvanized by this free and open data. And now we see that those authors are leading, in fact, in terms of the numbers of publications, which makes sense in terms of the absolute numbers, but it's also very interesting to see the countries that are contributing. So we have this methodology now, which allows us to update quite quickly, almost automatically, not quite, but almost regularly. So we do hope that we will be able to do that as well in the future. So yes, that is more or less what I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much, and very much looking forward to any questions.
Thanks, Dimitri, and emphasize yet again the importance of these cross-cutting analyses. They've both benefited the cases and drawn upon the cases, so it's very much a two-way process, and has been extremely interesting process, I would say, and you know, the overall methodology has been really well appreciated. Are there any questions? We have a bit of time, but I see no questions in the chat. If anyone's got them, then now's the time. I'll ask you to open your microphone, and you can raise your hand as well, given the fewer people now on the call. Please feel free and come in and join us. It has been a heavy afternoon. I think we're all feeling it as well. So I mean, if there are no questions, then I certainly take the opportunity to finish a little bit earlier. Remind you that we start again tomorrow at 9 o'clock. We've looked at 8 full cases and 4 full cases today. We do the same tomorrow. We've got 2 panels, both of which will be, I think, extremely interesting exchanges with experts in the different fields. So please do come back. We've got a question for Dimitri. Martin, do you want to come in and put your question directly? It's my preferred method of operandi.
Sorry, Jeff. Jeff, what did you say?
No. Martin Menard
right.
has put a question into the chat. I'm inviting concerning the Sentinel-3 data. Martin, please.
Is my voice hearable?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah. Yes, as I posted my question, you have compared the Sentinel-1, 2, but the other Sentinels, the growth of their usage, why is it slower, or your opinion? Downstream usage.
Yeah. Dimitri?
Hello, sorry about that. Someone was at my door. Yes, so you mentioned the slower usage growth for Sentinel-3. Well, Sentinel-3, of course, is a little bit newer than the other Sentinel. So as with all of the cases, the longer a satellite is operational, the more there is in terms of uptake. However, I believe that there is probably a very specific reason why Sentinel-2 and 1 have seen such uptake. Sentinel-2, especially now, leading the field compared to the slower growth. And I think, if I'm right, you're referring to this slide in which we compared all the Sentinels in the bar graph. So if I could just go back to that, I will do so. Or yes, if my collaborators could take me back a couple of slides.
Martin?
Okay, no, I can.
No, you're managing it.
Yeah, I've got it. So that is this one here, this one here, right? That's the issue that you are referring to, the fact that Sentinel-3 here is kind of slow to grow, right? I mean, I wouldn't want to give a definitive answer. I think there's probably a lot of reasons for this. Possibly a more focused scientific community. Possibly that, simply the application areas are not so well explored. Possibly just the maturity of the mission. So that, I mean, there could be a number of options there. I honestly don't know the answer, but I think this is very interesting food for further thought and further discussion.
Thanks, Dimitri. Thanks, Marta. I think we'll call it a day. I think everyone's. We've got more opportunities for questions tomorrow. Again, there are dedicated sessions, but more importantly, we have the open session in the afternoon, where all questions on all topics can be asked, and we'll try to prepare some questions. We've noted a few as we've gone through today, so let's rejoin tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. We'll start quite sharp, so be here at 9, and have a good evening in between, and see you all tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Indeed. Thanks, everyone.